A very warm welcome to Arthan's conference today titled Leaders for a Better World, Rethinking Social Sector Strategies. I am Shivani and I will be your host for today. This room today comprises various influential leaders from the impact sector working tirelessly towards the attainment of different sustainable development goals for the collective good of humanity. We are honored to have each one of you today participate in this collective dialogue on rethinking social sector strategies. Sustainable Development Goal 8 talks about promoting sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive environment, and decent work for all. Arthan was founded with a mission of connecting millions to economic opportunities, a mission to promote and introduce economic impact opportunities to individuals across the global south. Today, Arthan is a social enterprise that has been working to strengthen the social impact sector through capacity building and consulting support in areas of human capital, organizational development, and thought leadership. Since our inception in 2016, we have worked with 1,000 plus social impact organizations in South Asia, engaged with 5 lakh plus job seekers, curated 40 plus forums with 700 plus speakers and 10,000 plus attendees. At Arthan, we work with organizations who are at the forefront of solving pressing societal challenges, including access to equitable healthcare, enabling quality education for low income communities, ensuring sustainable livelihoods for all, climate change, and more. Our founders visualize a future where the best minds of the country are working towards solving the most complex societal challenges. A future where purpose and profit go hand in hand. We have an exciting lineup of speakers for you today who will delve into various themes on the future of impact and human capital. Without further ado, I'd like to call upon our co-founder, Mr. Rahul Balakrishnan, to give the welcome address. Rahul is the co-founder at Arthan. Previously, he has worked with ICICI Prudential and Teach for India. Rahul holds a graduate degree in commerce from Delhi University and a master's degree from XLRI Jamshedpur. Rahul, please.
Thank you. Hi. Good morning, everyone. I know we have had to wait a lot to start. Apologies for that. Thanks a lot, Shivani, for introducing me, and I have a huge pressure on my shoulders to start this conference with a very energetic speech. That was what was told to me. But I hope I do justice. Yes, as Shivani mentioned, Arthan was constituted in the year 2016. And we started our operations, by the way, in September 2017. So we are completing 6 years. I think we can have a round of applause for that. Yeah. Uh, and Arthan has provided a huge amount of impact for social organizations across Southeast Asia, as Shivani mentioned. But at the same time, I think it has provided a huge amount of growth and learning platform for us as individuals too. I think, and I know this conference talks about leaders for a better world, and I know leadership as a word and better world as a word is cliched, and we tend to use it a lot everywhere on social platforms or even in one-on-one meetings. And I know Mr. Dogra is sitting here, and he is one of the people who introduced me to the word leadership. And my master's degree at XLRI Jamshedpur taught me that leadership is about getting things done from others or inspiring people to do something extraordinary in this world. But what amazed me was when Mr. Dogra introduced me a whole different meaning to leadership all those years ago. He mentioned that leadership stems from a root word from Latin called lieth, Lieth. Am I correct? And lieth basically means going forward and dying, and that was a very different perspective to the word leadership, which means leadership is all about taking risks, going forward and taking risks to a level that you might lose relationships, you might lose certain donors in our language, or you might have to principally be so strong that you are willing to let go of certain things. And that is the foundation on which I'm proud to say that Arthan was built. Yes, since 2017 September, we have worked with 1,000 plus institutions. We have interacted or supported directly or indirectly 5 lakh plus job seekers. And over the last 6 odd years, we have created impact through various services, which includes talent acquisition and executive search, organizational development and capacity building, and thought leadership, which is one of the initiatives that we are doing today. Yes, leaders for a better world. Leaders are so important in every sphere of life, and it is one of the most critical pieces of the puzzle when it comes to the social impact space. Um, Leaders everywhere in the social impact space are trying to address problems head on. They are trying to work with very large constraints when it comes to funding, when it comes to lack of quality people, or lack of conducive environments to do what they do every day. And we at Arthan wanted to create a platform where all these leaders can come together and interact. And we believe that over the course of the day, we will be able to create that energy and create that air of collaboration for all of us to interact, and also create more opportunities for younger people who want to come into the sector and create and work for change. And thank you, all of you, for making time on a working day to come all the way from various parts of Delhi and various cities of India to be here. Um, and like I said, I am a person who transitioned myself from the corporate sector. I was in the banking financial sector for a good 6 years before getting into the social impact space. And I would never say that social sector is the only sector grappling with challenges. Every sector has its own challenges. Every sector have their own constraints. And when I was at ICICI Prudential myself, there were challenges that I was facing every day. But I think what social sector does or brings is slightly more unique, because the challenges are not sometimes in our control all the time. And I think Arthan's platform is to address that elephant in the room, where we constantly speak about what collaboration and what connections could bring. And like Shivani mentioned, we have a plethora of people in this room today who are coming from various backgrounds, various journeys, and working at various spaces within the large ecosystem that we call social impact. And I'm hoping that at the end of the day, we create those meaningful connections to go back and reconnect and hopefully create a larger ecosystem where people feel supported. Um, Arthan's community, I hope, will serve as a ray of hope and showcase that a career in social impact is worth it. Um, and and we constantly speak about the word patience when we speak about social impact, that um, social impact sector and problems in the sector sometimes need time for you to delve into work with. And a lot of young people unfortunately are coming from a YouTube shorts background here, right? We want to flick over every video that we watch very quickly. We want to flick over from one topic to another very quickly. The attention span is lower, but social sector kind of teaches us to be patient, continue watching one feed or one video for a long time, and no problems can be solved by just spending a year or 6 months in a job. I constantly meet young people who come to me and say, I am looking for a change to move into the social impact space. And when I ask them, how long have you been here where you are? They say 6 months. Then why are you leaving? And then they constantly speak about, oh, I have done enough. I think I need something more to do. And I feel that is what social impact sector teaches, that uh, spending time and marinating yourself into the problem teaches you more than any multiple job switches. And a lot of the stalwarts and speakers that we'll meet today have spent literally half of their life doing what they do and spending every day relentlessly trying to solve the problem that they are trying to solve. So it's also important for young people in this room to interact and meet such people, that this is not just a cliched word, or it's not just in newspaper articles. These are real people who have real stories. So it's important that we bring this community together and build this platform so that these discussions can thrive and foster. And Arthan is not just celebrating leadership, but also ensuring that social sector continues to inspire younger generations. Uh, we are committed to ensuring that we don't lose our brightest talent to other sectors. I feel uh, we constantly interact with a lot of young people from MBA, B schools, public policy schools, and while there is a very strong shift of people moving to the sector, but there is also various reasons why people stop themselves from moving to the sector, and mostly it is commercial. It is about how can I sustain myself. And I think in this room there are multiple examples of people who have built their own stories in the social impact space and brought alive that sustainability and impact can go hand in hand. And there are various ways and various methods to build social impact initiatives. There are so many organizations today who are working for profit, but also trying to build and bring public good. So these were stories that I wasn't aware when I moved to the sector in 2014. And I feel after having experienced the social development sector for close to 9 years, this is my way and our way of giving back to the sector and the society. Um, so, to conclude, I would just say that let's use the next few hours, panel discussions and roundtable discussions, and the time in between. I usually hear a lot of people saying here they are excited to meet XYZ individual in these panels and roundtables. But I also feel make good use of the time in between. Meet different people from different walks of life, connect, reconnect, and try to share ideas, because that's how Arthan was born. I happened to meet Satyam over a networking platform called Network Capital on Facebook. And we met multiple times at Brown Box Cafe in South Delhi. And I don't think I would have been inspired to be here for this long if not for those informal slash formal conversations that we had. So you never know, you might be around someone who you would end up working with or collaborating with as an institution. So please make sure that you are making the most of this day to day. And yeah, and revisiting the definition of leadership, which is not just getting things done, but it's also about pushing yourself to die every moment while attempting to get things done. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for that, Rahul. Your unwavering commitment to arm the social sector with the best talent is definitely an inspiration to all of us. I think now we will move on to our keynote address. To begin with, we have a video message from Ms. Dipali Khanna from Rockefeller Foundation. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it today, but she has a very special message for us. Just to give a brief introduction, Ms. Dipali Khanna oversees the efforts to amplify Rockefeller Foundation's impact and initiatives to make opportunities universal and sustainable. She leads the efforts of the Asia Regional Office team to build and sustain networks with different institutions, leverage financing, collaborations, innovative grants, thought leadership, and information on trends driving the Asian continent's development. I would request everybody to direct their attention to the screen in front of us, and we will shortly play the video.
Ladies and gentlemen, greetings. I'm Deepali Khanna, Vice President at the Rockefeller Foundation, leading the Asia region. Today's topic is something that I'm truly very passionate about: the necessity of having more women leaders in the green economy. I would like to begin by giving a huge shout out to Arthan's Women at Work initiative that aims to make organizations working for social impact more inclusive for women and thereby increase women's participation in the development workforce, especially at mid-senior levels. The initiative is conceived by the Women's Leadership in the Development Sector research conducted by Arthan in partnership with the Rockefeller Foundation in 2020, and today, as a full-fledged initiative, aspires to make the development sector more inclusive and conducive for women to join, grow, and most importantly, lead the workforce. We know that the green economy presents an unprecedented opportunity. As nations brace up to address the climate crisis, businesses and governments are pumping billions into clean energy, sustainable agriculture, green manufacturing, and ecosystem restoration. We are witnessing an economic transformation comparable to the Industrial Revolution, one with the potential to create millions of jobs and redefine our societal values. But for this transformation to be complete, it must be inclusive. However, the landscape of leadership in the green economy, much like many other sectors, currently reflects significant gender imbalances. This isn't just an issue of fairness or social justice. It is about effectiveness, innovation, and most importantly, long-term sustainability. When women are not part of the decision-making process, we lose out on diverse perspectives that can yield novel solutions to the complex problems we face. A study by the International Energy Agency in 2021 showed that in energy-related sectors, women make up just under 14% of senior managers, just 14%. The glass ceiling for women is hardest to break at the highest echelon of senior management. The same study concluded that within the energy sector, women at the top posts, example, chair of the board, CEO, president, are at less than 5%. You heard it right, less than 5%. Let me present to you another data point for comparison. The top S&P 500 companies with women in senior management above the median saw a 30% higher return on equity, according to Bank of America's global research. 30% higher. That's quite significant. It seems like the business case for gender diversity in leadership is very clear. Gender diversity at the top correlates with the higher rates of innovation and profitability, a trend that extends to environmental performance as well. Furthermore, women often bring a unique set of skills, perspectives, and values that are essential for navigating the complexities of environmental challenges. Emotional intelligence, collaboration, and a long-term vision are increasingly acknowledged as vital leadership traits in the green economy, all of which are competencies where women, on average, excel. Asian economies, which have been global leaders in innovation and manufacturing, have a unique opportunity to incorporate gender diversity as a cornerstone for building a sustainable future. Moreover, it is often women who disproportionately bear the brunt of environmental degradation and climate change. We all know that. We need to look at women as agents of change, resilience, and innovation. They deserve to be decision makers in the sectors that most directly impact their lives. Now, what can we do to promote more women leaders in the green economy? I'll highlight three things. First, we need to promote STEM education for girls. The green economy is fundamentally rooted in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Girls should be encouraged from a very early age to explore these subjects, paving the way for academic and professional opportunities in fields like renewable energy, environmental science, and sustainable agriculture. Secondly, we need to provide them with mentorship and networking opportunities. Women who have broken through the green ceiling have a responsibility and opportunity to mentor those who are coming up. Networks need to be built specifically serve to advance women in the green economy, whether through convenings, workshops, or online platforms. They need to be getting the space to do so. Thirdly, we need flexible work environments. The green economy should be at the forefront of modeling the kind of work life balance that is often necessary for women to thrive professionally, especially those who bear a disproportionate share of household responsibilities. I would be really keen to hear from you as to what other steps can be taken to make the green economy transition a woman led development, something that I truly believe in. The green economy offers a landscape rich with opportunities, not just for sustainable development and climate resilience, but for social transformation, which is really the need of the hour. In shaping this new world, let us make sure that women are not just beneficiaries, but they are leaders, pioneers, and architects. Because a green economy led by both women and men isn't just a better economy, it's the only kind of economy that can sustain the planet we all share. Thank you so much.
I think that was a very impactful address. And I think the intersection of climate, education, and gender equality is something which we can no longer ignore. At Arthan, also, we routinely look to promote and advance opportunities for women in the development sector, especially in the green economy. Up next, we have Mr. Deepak Dogra with us today to deliver the keynote address. Mr. Deepak Dogra leads the Asia operations of Room to Read. Room to Read is a leading nonprofit for children's literacy and girls' education across Asia and Africa. Mr. Dogra is also a board member of Arthan. Mr. Dogra, please come on stage.
Morning, everyone. And after having those two impactful speeches, I'm kind of worried right now as to what I'm going to say here. My name is Deepak, as everybody knows. I wear two hats here. I work for an international nonprofit called Room to Read. I'm based in Delhi. I manage operations across 7 countries, distributed across South Asia and Southeast Asia. In addition to that, I'm a close friend of Arthan. I've been associated with them for last, I think since its conception, I believe. I met Satyam way back in 2009 when I moved to Delhi from Gujarat. And we've been in touch ever since. And how Arthan sort of unfolded, how now we have kind of pivoted into Climate Asia initiative as well. All those. So I've been sort of part and parcel of it, but in the background. So whatever is happening, what has happened, been kind of watching it from a distance and perhaps once in a while meeting the team and Satyam for that matter. So I spent quite a bit of time actually thinking about what I should be saying here. And it's kind of because the topic is kind of all encompassing. There's leadership, there is better future, there is succession, there is motivation, there is, you can kind of bring in everything here. And so I'll try to keep it short, and I've tried to kind of divide into sections just to make it easier. Something about me, something about what I feel is happening in the sector per se, and therefore what else can be done, or what are the questions that I am faced with, which I hope that I'll get some answers here, or perhaps some kind of, something that I can chew on later. So that's the larger idea, and hope that's okay. And so basically, I belong to a state called Himachal, and year '99 is when I was teaching in a government school as part of my training and as part of my experience, so to speak. And then that is when I realized I need to get into education, but I don't want to teach. I don't want to keep the repetitiveness of the whole process was something that I was not keen on sort of getting into. But that is when the journey started. But with no idea as to where it will lead, what I will do, what I will be doing in future, or sort of with a very open mindedness. And that kind of brought me to Delhi, and then I did a bit of a stint in journalism for some time, and then moved to do an MBA later. Within that, as Rahul mentioned, I would try to connect those dots. So, in the sense, post MBA, it's like, okay, let's experiment for 6 months with development sector, and then figure out, अच्छा लगा तो रुकेंगे, नहीं तो we'll just go to banking, which is what everybody was doing. And then something happened. And the process or that institution is called Pratham. Rukmini is not here yet. I was kind of looking forward to meet her. Okay. So, and Pratham happened in Gujarat. And ever since, it has not, I've never looked back. This is year 2004. I'm 23. And it's been, it becomes so addictive because every day you're doing new things. Every day you are facing a new challenge. Every day trying to solve something which you kind of aspire to solve. And you slip a bit, but then you go back again. And best of it was what I call as what kind of maintains your motivation in the sector is the people around you. So met the right set of people. I was lucky enough for that. Rukmini, Madhav, then team in Gujarat. And then the kind of independence you get, the kind of supports you get, the independence not only to do new things, but to fail as well. And independence to sort of fail, come back and try again. All those things kind of mattered a lot. And that kind of it played with me very well, and it has kind of stayed with me, and I moved from one place to another, but then moving from one kind of issue to another, but largely in education. So I've been in education for last almost 20 years now. Something that there are a few things that sort of have stayed with me in this. It's I'm just taking some cues from what Rahul said. Number one was what I realized early on, that you need to have mentors. You need to meet people who you like, who you would want to stay with. If not stay with, stay in touch with for that matter. And kind of ask questions, and with an intention to learn, not to poke holes, with an intention to sort of broaden your horizons. And within this, the larger idea being that the one line which I articulated much later, but everywhere, wherever I go, my learning is my responsibility. It's not someone else's. So I have to take control of it, and therefore, whatever I want to learn, whatever I want to do, I am the one who's responsible for it. And then therefore keep adding skills, be curious about everything that's happening around you. Try to connect the dots, how things are moving, how things are changing around you. Especially, it's becoming increasingly relevant in these days, given how dynamic the social sector is, ever changing, new problems you're facing. And since now, when I look at things across the length and breadth of countries, every day is a new challenge. External environment, internal environment, people, strategy, policies, everything. How do you connect the dots? How do you bring in more people into your ambit and stuff? And so from there, the one line, the other thing that has become my sort of tagline for development sector right now, it's like once you get into it, you start liking it, it's like a Formula One race, but doesn't have a pit stop. So you're changing your tire when you're moving. You're trying to steer your car, but there's something else broken. You're trying to figure out direction. Trying to figure out 10 other things. But it is like that. And I think it's addictive. You can't then sit idle. You can't just say, okay, I'll take a break for 6 months or 1 year and then I'll come back. It doesn't work like that. You just have to go on. And every day you try to figure out what is next step for me. And so, as I said, this sector per se is so dynamic and so evolving right now that every day it's need of the hour that with every non-sector, non-sector, but every NGO sector professional needs to be nimble, dynamic, quick on his feet, be able to figure out what are the various solutions that he or she may be able to provide. And within this sector, then I've come across 2-3 different kind of people. People who are so passionate about their work, have a vision, have a larger idea what they want to do, and they end up infecting you, so to speak, with their energy, and which keeps you motivated all the time. So name comes to me, Rukmini, Madhav. I've worked with them. It's like there is like drinking from a hose pipe. You have ideas, and you can only take that much amount to work with, for that matter. And then there are people who are like, okay, I will move to development sector. I want to look at it as a career. And then some set of people who are somewhere in between. I would consider myself as one of them. Be here, figure out, okay, I like it. At times I don't like it, but yeah, I'm here and I want to be here because this is where I feel my niche is. And within this is the conglomeration of these 3 kind of people who are constantly interacting with each other and kind of motivating each other, pushing each other and moving our boundaries, so to speak. And within this, at the helm of it, are the people. People are the ultimate, I would say, place where you give inputs, where you get maximum. I don't want to use the word output here, but in the sense that everything has to be people-centric in the sector, because and as they say, whatever we do in this sector is the output or is the byproduct of the relationships you develop in this sector over a period of time. And so therefore, coming back to this larger theme of how to rethink the social sector strategies, there are certain things that I kind of focus on. Within the network area, within the workspace I am in, one is establishing a mutual respect as a cornerstone of all interactions, because ultimately that's the team you're going to work with. And I assume excellence in behavior and acknowledging the constraints that every one of us is working under. Be cognizant of those, be mindful of those. That helps in establishing those relationships. And also I kind of try to help and partners redefine their roles. How in day-to-day life they can redefine their roles so that they are able to, as my team members, are able to discover what they want in their own personal lives through whatever common connections and common work connection we have. Specifically, just to give you a few specific examples, for instance, from Room to Read, for instance, we focus a lot on people. We focus a lot on building capacity. We focus a lot on strengthening their capacity. So that larger idea being that you are able to grow people within the organization. We aim to have 50% of vacancies to be filled from within the organization. So therefore, build capacities over time so that people can move up the ladder. Succession planning is big. I work with around 7 country directors. Almost everybody has a succession plan. In the sense, what happens next? What if I want to move on? What is my next level? How do I add more value to my career line? And therefore, what is the kind of succession planning I'm supposed to have? And that is where I think the value add comes from the team, so to speak. And therefore, we create a lot of formal and informal strategies so that the mobility is possible within the organization. And yeah, so these are the sort of long and short of it, given the time that has been given to me. And going forward, I think I would leave you and leave the panelists and leave the roundtable that's going to happen with a couple of questions, which is, how can we foster organizations that live in a visible way so that the values that we aspire for are there in the organizations? How do we foster those things? And especially when over a period of time we have seen organizations increasing. Arthan has increased quite a lot. So what complexity the size brings, and therefore how do we kind of create a balance between the value we espouse right in the beginning and once we have reached a certain stage or a certain size. Second is in the same vein, more or less, that how we as leaders do not lose connection while we are doing our day-to-day chores with the last mile that we sort of started with. It could be a child for us, it could be something else for you. How do we still maintain that connection while we are busy implementing our work, on day-to-day lives? With this, I will leave the podium with one last quote, which I read kind of a couple of days ago. It's from a book called Carrots and Sticks Don't Work. And it says, I know of no other strategy in all of management that yields a higher return on investment than recognition. In my estimate, the ROI is 1:100. In other words, for every minute spent on reinforcing a behavior, you can expect 100 minutes of initiative in return. And that is what I think sums up the development sector for all of us. Thank you so much. Have a great day and hope to see you around.
Thank you, Mr. Dogra, for your long-standing support and mentorship towards Arthan. It was very heartening to learn about your journey. We are now going to proceed to our panel discussion. And just to start off with, in a world where the challenges we face as a global society continue to evolve, social impact organizations play a pivotal role in addressing pressing issues, championing social justice, and driving positive change. These organize ranging from nonprofits and foundations to CSRs and community-based initiatives have a shared commitment to making our world a better place. At the heart of their success is the passion, dedication, and unwavering commitment of their leaders and teams. However, as we move forward, we are faced with a pivotal moment, one that demands careful consideration and strategic planning. Our panel discussion today aims to be a guiding light in this journey. Through our time together, we will delve deep into the complexities of succession planning, decentralized leadership development, and organizational sustainability within the social impact sector. We will explore innovative strategies, share best practices, and engage in open dialogues to address these unique challenges that the organizations face. I am pleased to introduce our speakers today, starting with Ms. Shavita Sharma Kukreja, CEO and Managing Director of Central Square Foundation. Ms. Shavita is the CEO and Managing Director at Central Square Foundation. She has been part of the founding team at CSF since 2012. Ms. Shavita leads CSF's work on foundation literacy and numeracy, early childhood education, and EdTech, and oversees the organization's institution building. She is passionate to bring to life CSF's vision of quality learning for all children and government-led system reform for scale and sustainability. Prior to CSF, she has worked with the Boston Consulting Group and Citibank. She has also been a visiting faculty member in the Human Resource and Organizational Behavior disciplines at many business schools. Ms. Shavita earned her bachelor's degrees in economics from Shri Ram College of Commerce, University of Delhi, and holds an MBA in management from IIM Bangalore. We're very glad to have you, ma'am. Please come on board. Next up, we have Ms. Ratna Vishwanathan, who is the Chief Executive Officer at Reach to Teach. Ms. Ratna is the CEO at Reach to Teach, a social impact organization working towards improving teaching and learning outcomes in government schools. She is deeply passionate about making learning a joyful experience for students by fostering teacher agency. Ms. Ratna believes in learning out of curiosity and competing with oneself to achieve one's own potential. She seeks to work from within the existing education system to create an environment that enthuses key stakeholders in a child's life. She believes learning happens when it is supported by an enabling environment. Ms. Ratna holds a master's in English literature and writes columns on diverse subjects like development, governance, and defense. She is a former civil servant from the 1987 batch of the Indian Audit and Account Service. She gave up a highly coveted career in the civil services to join the development sector. Prior to joining Reach to Teach, she held leadership roles at Oxfam India, VSO, MFin, UNEP, and UNDP. She also serves as an independent women director on the boards of several companies. She believes that the development sector gives one the flexibility and agility to bring long-term systemic and transformational change to human lives. We're very glad to have you. Please come on board. Next up, we have Dr. Rukmini Banerjee, Chief Executive Officer at Pratham Education Foundation. Dr. Rukmini Banerjee was trained as an economist at St. Stephen's College, Delhi, and the Delhi School of Economics. She was a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford University and completed her PhD at the University of Chicago in 1991. Ms. Rukmini returned to India in 1996 and joined Pratham. Over the years, she has worked extensively in Pratham's education programs in rural and urban areas. Along with her teams, she has played a major role in designing and supporting large-scale partnerships with state governments in India for improving children's learning outcomes. Dr. Rukmini led Pratham's research and assessment efforts, including the annual Status of Education report exercise from 2005 to 2014. Since 2015, she has been the CEO of Pratham. Do we have Dr. Rukmini? Next up, we have Ms. Shagun Sabharwal, Director Programs Asia at Co-Impact. Dr. Shagun Sabharwal is Director Programs Asia at Co-Impact, where she leads Co-Impact's program strategy and grant making in Asia. Ms. Shagun brings wide-ranging and deep experience of programmatic work across Asia and has led large teams and complex partnerships involving collaborations between nonprofits, government departments, and knowledge and learning partners. She also brings expertise in social policy and development research, grant making, learning, and evaluation systems change, gender equality, and women's leadership. Prior to joining Co-Impact, Dr. Shagun was the South Asia and Monitoring, Evaluation, and Learning Director at Women Lift Health. Dr. Shagun has a doctorate in public health from Harvard University. Can we please have you on board? Lastly, we have our very own Ms. Vartika Gupta, Senior Manager, Growth and Partnerships at Arthan, as our moderator, who will be moderating this panel discussion. Ms. Vartika Gupta is currently working as a Senior Manager, Growth and Partnerships at Arthan, where she plays a pivotal leadership role in working on long-term partnerships and expansion strategies to pilot new ideas. She is an experienced business development professional with diverse experience in domains of education, socio-environmental sustainability, public affairs, and policy. Having worked across nonprofits, startups, and impact consulting, she is skilled in policy, training, capacity building, fundraising, and partnerships, and holds a keen interest to work towards creating effective and win-win strategic reforms through an entrepreneurial lens in the impact industry. I will now hand it over to Ms. Vartika Gupta to helm the discussion.
Hello? Okay, great. So there's a house full of people here. So thank you so much for making the time and gracing us with your presence. I think it's really lovely to see some familiar faces, some new faces sitting in this hall. Hoping to also, make sure that you are able to meet all of us, meet the panelists, etc. But just want to start with this panel with a sense of gratitude and a big thank you to all of you. As you can see, we have a great lineup of speakers here without having to say too many words. And I think before we even begin this panel, I would just like to set some context, which is primarily in terms of understanding and dissecting some pivotal components of today's themes. Now, we'll try to do that in three folds, and we'll try to do it in the sense where I have also understood from them that there is a sense of attitude, there's a sense of perception, and then there's a sense of resources, which really enable/disable a lot of those processes with respect to human capital development and succession planning. So obviously there'll be a lot of that dissection and that deep diving into it. But before we start really doing that, would love to start this panel on a more positive note and understand what are some of those steps, or maybe just one step that probably you can talk about, which is bringing you slightly closer to a successful succession planning in terms of where the organization is at. So, one thing that maybe you feel we have started doing or we look forward to doing. Yeah, we can probably open this panel with that. Maybe Shavita, we can start with you.
So Vartika, in terms of if we look at some significant developments which are more positive in this direction, for me what stands out is just the fact there is more interest, there is more conversation in talking about talent and human capital. The fact that as the sector is maturing, as organizations are growing and getting institutionalized, we always know people are important, right? People are important in a startup, people are important in large, well-established organizations. But I think as the sector is evolving and maturing, there is just more open acknowledgement, discussion on the need to invest in people. And alongside, offshoot, a very critical offshoot of this is even the kind of programs which are now beginning to get offered. I'm not saying by any means they are adequate, but at least now we have an institute like an ISDM, which is offering a degree in development management. We have programs like India Leaders for Social Sector, which is trying to solve for leadership positions in the social sector. I think these are all positive beginnings in the right direction, necessary, but far from sufficient, of course.
Thanks, Shavita. Maybe Rukmini, if you would want to add.
Um, so I don't know about succession planning, but the people I'll mention are not women leaders. But when I look at Deepak or Satyam, I feel like there is real growth of leaders, and we feel very happy that we were able to contribute to the leadership in this space. Having said that, my own succession planning is getting further and further behind because because these fellows are people are becoming leaders. But I think that on a more serious note, I think that there is a bigger pool of talent, of leadership, of people who are like Deepak said and like Rahul, right? Yeah, they said that this is now a pathway that people really want to be on passionately. And so while organizationally we could be struggling, or figuring out what to do next, I think as a space, it's a lot stronger than it was some years ago. And, I think that makes for a, much better impact for the whole sector as we go
Absolutely,
further.
absolutely. Thank you, Rukmini. And I know you talked much larger in terms of the entire ecosystem and how you also, as a leader, are contributing to the same. So thank you for highlighting that. Ratna, if you would like to maybe come in and talk a little bit about Reach to Teach.
Okay, yeah. So Reach to Reach basically is an organization that's been working in India since 2007. We've been primarily in Gujarat for the longest time. 2019-20, we've moved out. So now we're also in Haryana. We're also in Arunachal Pradesh, moving on to Meghalaya next month. And we thought that the Northeast is a good place to focus and invest in, because somewhere that narrative needs to be brought up to par, which is one of the reasons we're focusing on the Northeast. Having said that, Reach to Teach has worked at ground level for more than 15 years. And 2019 now we moved to working with governments. So we work directly with state governments on government schools. So we work at scale across all government schools within the states that we are working in. Our focus is very simple. We believe, like it was mentioned earlier, that learning has to be joyful, because children learn best when they're happy. And it's not tools, it's not big sophisticated equipment, or very very high end teaching and learning material. It's imagination, it is frugal innovation, it is what is available, because at the end of the day government schools are low resource schools, and there is a need to build on what exists without starting to ask for more and saying this should have been there, that should have been there, we need X. Build on what already exists. So that's our approach. And yes, like somebody else was mentioning, I think Deepak, you fall in love with the sector, it's addictive, you never get out. Hotel California all the way.
Thank you, Ratna, for those insights. Shagun, quickly, if you can also maybe add what is happening in co-impact currently, and what are you doing as a leader to kind of maybe push one step closer to having like a more successful roadmap for the succession plan?
So thanks a lot, and it's really a pleasure to be here. And I think this topic on, we have so many representatives from the education sector, and it's human development. So I think it all makes a lot of sense. So I think at Co-Impact, I have just joined. I've just been 3 weeks. It's been 3 weeks, so I don't think I'm talking about succession planning right away. But I will say that I think one of the things that Co-Impact, which is a collaborative philanthropic collaboration, is really trying to look at is also about investing in the organization, which in turn means investing in people. And I will say that in this sector there is very uniquely, there is so much challenges, there are so many challenges when it comes to thinking about development of the staff long term. It's not just jumping from one project to the other, and all of these come in the way of really developing talent. Because when you talk about succession planning, it is about continuity, right? It is about saying that it's not dependent on one person or one leader. The organization is more than that, especially in this particular sector where we are doing such amazing work at the ground level. But at Co-Impact, when we started our journey, we started to realize that this dynamic between donors or grant makers and the program partners is very skewed. There's a lot of power asymmetry in many ways, right? Because you need to work on like all your budget line items, everything has to be about the project and not about the organization. So I think that's now changing, and it's really heartening to see Arthan having an entire day's conference on human development and human capital, which speaks a lot, right? So
Thank you so much, Shagun. That was really helpful. I understand, and from all of you, what I've heard is that there's definitely a sense of purpose, a sense of commitment that's also required to sustain that planning, to even talk and kickstart that mode of action, right? And especially with respect to the social sector, if you talk about it. Now, how can a well crafted succession roadmap, and this is to all the panelists, not only ensure a smooth handover of responsibilities, but also safeguard the organization's core values, right? Because that's also a very critical piece. And that happens a lot during transitions. How do you really? I know this is a much larger discussion, but if we can maybe just touch upon 2, 3 points here, and then we can deep dive into a little bit more on the terms of what are some of those challenges in terms of resources, like some of you have already pointed out in your conversation so far. So my question is that although there's a smooth handover of responsibilities, how do you at the same time safeguard those core organizational values and objectives, ensuring that they remain intact, but they also have a sense of evolution, and it's not just stopping at that, but it has a sense of adaptability, it has a sense of evolution. So maybe we can start with Ratna, if yeah, thank you.
So I think succession planning needs to be looked at two levels. One, of course, is the leadership level, and particularly in the not for profit sector. More often than not, we've seen that founders are the key leaders, and there's a need to then do a downward dissemination in case of their transition. So that's number one, but that's at one level. I think also for sustainability of an organization, succession planning has to be done at every level, because at the end of the day your program is as good as the people that man it. To be able to, like you said, to foster values and to carry on the values that are already embedded in the organization. I think when you're identifying talent and you're recruiting talent, the softer competencies, it's not just technical competence, but the softer competencies of, is this person a fit for the organization, is critical. Because if we were to say that it's only talent in terms of technical capability that counts, it's often disruptive, right? So I think one way of looking at it is, yes, at the time of recruitment, but also each organization has different verticals, different offices, different fields. Now, when you recruit people, I come from government. I come into a system where I know where I'm going to be in the next 20 years, right? My succession I can see clearly. So why don't we do that in the sector? So wherever I've worked, this is what we've done. We create pathways so that I, as an employee, know I have something to look forward to, right? And because I have something, and each step I take, I learn more. I already am embedded in the organization. I understand the values, but I also know I have a career path ahead. And we do this at every level. And especially when, and senior levels, we more often than not try to promote from within the organization, but where the talent doesn't exist, because if there is a short gap, you just build that capacity. But sometimes it doesn't cover that. Then you do look at an external person, but embedded in the context of making sure that your culture and values are understood. People can learn, but learning competencies is something which I think it either comes with the person or it doesn't. You know, I can't be made to be kind, and I can't be made to be
Absolutely.
respectful. It will fall apart when I'm not aware of it, right?
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ratna. I think you also touched upon what the 3 points that we actually started the panel discussion with was primarily on the lines of attitudes, perceptions, and resources. I think you did speak a little bit on the lines of how each layer needs to also change, and that change needs to be brought in by the senior leaders also. How there could be an attitudinal shift. There could also be a perception shift of the entire ecosystem, like what Rukmani was also talking about. That there is aspirations, and there could also be possibilities of aspirations, and there is a possibility for growth in this sector, and how as senior leaders we can enable that. Obviously there are resources and there are challenges along with it, but that you are facing at your level, but despite of that, what could be some of those other things, and how, like you said, learning can be joyful. Sometimes the challenges can be centered around the senior leadership, but how can we still keep that joyfulness alive in the organization at every layer? So thank you so much for that, Ratna. Shagun, maybe you can come in and talk a little bit more about how do we really help that, and also because you recently transitioned. So what are some of those things that you really kept in mind while making that transition, so that your core values, the organization's aspirations are still aligned, but you're not changing yourself as an identity?
Yeah, thanks. So I think that, there are, as I think about this topic, there are a number of themes that come to mind, which I feel that, we must emphasize when we're thinking about succession planning, or more broadly thinking about investments in human development at the organization level, right? And I think even my own transitions have really shown to me that every organization does have a value that we've been talking about, right? Now, some of those values are on your website and you're like, this is who we are, but oftentimes they don't get operationalized. And when you're able to operationalize a value, that means, what does it mean to say that we are an organization that listens? For example, listening generously is a value that a lot of us are talking about. Is it being played out in your day to day in the organization? And how can you know that if the leader of the organization or the senior management, or they're only interested in coming and speaking, and they're not creating the spaces where staff can also contribute, then you
Right.
have not operationalized that value, right? And I think that while on the one hand there is a move and shift towards thinking about people being at the core of it, and like Ratna talked about soft skills, I think they use the word soft, but they're actually the most important thing. So I like to use the word human centric skills, or skills that are not just about technical skills, right? There, I think while this is all really good, but a lot of tokenism is also happening. When you talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, all of that, this is a bandwagon, again, started from the corporate, but now with the social sector. How are we really making sure that the leader and the leadership is setting a culture which is really moving away from toxicity, the I, me? And all of this begins when you start to invest in mentorship, when you start to also have behaviors. Like, for example, if you get opportunities and you feel, I have had enough, how am I building the pipeline? How am I giving the opportunities to the next person? Those things become very important. But all of this, underlying all of this, is that intentionality, which is very important. And I say that because we are overcome by work. Often in development sector, the resources are less than what you are trying to achieve. The time is definitely of essence. And then what ends up happening is that the thing that takes the back seat are these efforts about investing in staff, thinking about your goals, planning. I mean, all of us have all of those things, but they become an afterthought rather than the most important thing. And the world that we are in today, it's also kind of, we're all realizing that, especially in India, where the development sector is really growing by leaps and bounds, that getting the right talent, retaining them, is at the heart of everything. Even funding, I feel people have managed to get the funding, but they don't manage to get the teams right, then it's not going to be easy. So I feel overall what I would like to say is that we have to start thinking about leadership, and leadership is not something that you just learn on the go. Many of us, and management is different from leadership, right? So you have a lot of your tools, etc., which are more management related, but leadership, especially leadership which is transformative, which is about kindness, and it's about a lot of these values at the heart, are things that we have to start to intentionally invest in. Second, I do feel that there is this thing called organization culture. Having worked in different organizations, whether it's the culture of perfectionism, whether it's the culture of always working, it is a culture. And whatever you as leaders do, people will start to incorporate it without you having to say it, right? So we have to be very mindful with what type of culture we expect.
Absolutely, Shagun. Thank you so much for that. I think you actually talked a little bit more on the lines of not just challenges, but also enablers that could possibly be. And those enablers primarily centered around building a culture, having those core values aligned. At the same time, also assessing and preempting some needs, whether it be at a management tool level or whether it be at a leadership skill level. And I think that's very critical. So maybe my question to Shavita would be to kind of understand how can we identify such enablers and how can we really work on that, especially on the lines of building a culture. Anything that, as an example, you can probably talk. I'm sorry. Sure. So Shavita, if you don't mind, we can go to Rukmani, please.
So I think that all of this really starts with what is the real work, and then who is the real team person who's doing this, and then you build the structures around it. And so in my mind, I feel like, and I can't talk about any other organization. I've never worked with anybody else, and probably nobody will employ me now. That very often, at least in Pratham, it is everyone's first job, especially who are actually working with the kids and so on. First time they've maybe left home. It's the first time, they may be the first persons from their family to actually have a job as opposed to working on your own family business. And I think that has to be taken into account in terms of what do we do with, we have 6,000-7,000 people. I have people in this room, Manjeet, Nandita, who handle this first time into a work environment. I mean, that's who we actually are. You can have some fancy people on top, but if the whole body of the organization is not moving forward together, then workshops are not very useful, right? And so now thinking about that, and what is it? It's been a mystery to me. I've been in Pratham forever. I was in, for example, some time ago, I was in UP in one of our districts. And, after roaming around all day, then we said, Sham ko hum log milke thoda baat karenge. And when I arrived and wherever we were, there were about, 40, 50 young people in the room, but batti chali gayi. So you actually couldn't see their faces when you were talking. And so, I said some things, people said some things, and I said, कितने दिनों तक यहाँ पे काम करेंगे? Because अब तो 2 साल हो गए, काफ़ी बच्चों की प्रगति हो गई, अब तो यूपी बहुत बड़ा है, we must think about other places. And despite the fact that I couldn't see anyone, I could feel a strong resistance in the room. And nobody was saying anything. Finally, somebody from the back, and it's a female voice, she said, मैं आपसे सहमत नहीं हूँ. Now, this is probably somebody who's joined the organization like 1 year ago, okay? So I said, क्यों सहमत नहीं हूँ? She said, because अभी भी यहाँ के बच्चों को हमारी ज़रूरत है. Now, when the light came on, she was probably 18 years old, this girl. Now, where did she get this value? How did she have the confidence to express it? I think these are all matters that happen depending on how the teams are structured and who they speak to. The passion and infection that Deepak spoke about, it happens at every level. And therefore, I think a lot of the passion comes from the actual work that you're doing and how your teams view that work and how to create these very positive cultures of saying कि बच्चों को मेरी ज़रूरत है तो आप कोई भी हो सकते हो मुझे तो यही काम करना है. And probably if we had moved, she may have stayed behind. I don't know. But I think these are, the ecosystem angle is not unimportant.
Right.
What we are doing is not just creating organizations. We are creating the passion for a certain need, the excellence in a certain kind of, wanting outcomes that needs to be, larger. But having said this, and who knows, she might not ask me to speak again, so I'll say everything I have to say.
No,
No, I think a couple more things. how centralized or decentralized are we? Now, in Pratham, we are sort of a mix of being very decentralized and having each team, like, for example, Deepak came from the Gujarat team, they had a particular culture. And, there may be some other team, there were many common things, but also many distinctive things which came out of, at the time in Gujarat, for example, there was a lot of influence of the earthquake having happened and the work that had happened after that. So I think that how do you keep a large organization which has its own different fields and different teams, but yet come together, is one kind of a challenge. But the other, I think, in the increasingly changing climate, there is a lot of processes and compliances that have to come into account, which sometimes cut away from this, we are a team and so on and so forth. And so I think as we move forward, how do you keep your essential cultures intact while complying with, you have to punch in and punch out or whatever it is. I often don't do it, so I don't know. Manjeet is looking at me. Okay. And so this identity, and maybe this is more particularly for us because we have a very large ground force, is that sometimes you're a family, sometimes you're a movement, sometimes you're a program, and sometimes you're an institution. And each of these actually have different pathways. So I don't claim to say that, we've figured any of this out, but I think it's sometimes important to be each of these. So if we have a large team that is around, common activities once in a while make a big difference. So for example, Asar, when it started, pulled in people from all teams. And you did something together, you had some kind of a campaign mode. And we continue to do those because I think that brings people into a common space. It allows for a lot of new leaders to emerge. There are people who in their normal programs are kind of okay, and then you throw them in the deep end and they come out swimming and they will carry you as well. So where do you create these spaces for a large number of young people to show, what they're doing? So I think these are, I'm so glad that you had this panel because these are things we kind of know but have difficulty in articulating. COVID was a very, very important a thing that happened in so many ways. But for the fabric of our organization, I think it was absolutely critical because we had to go back to being a family. It was not okay to be a program. We didn't know if money was coming. And the fact that nobody lost their job, everybody everybody agreed to take a pay cut was very important in bringing that culture back.
Absolutely, Rukmini. Thank you so much. No, I will come back to you with more questions. But, just picking up on what you have shared and, some anecdotal experiences from you as well, I also feel like in terms of assessing needs, in terms of also understanding, I mean, there could also be an agency being hired to do that, to understand, do a map assessment, do a feasibility assessment, do a needs assessment, but how important it is to be vocal about it in your culture. I mean, maybe Rukmani would have never understood the importance of the program that she was running at that time, but it was probably because of the fact that the girl was able to stand up and vocalize her thoughts. And Shavita, just coming to you and talking about that, how often does that happen at CSF, or probably how important do you think it is from the point of view of every layer who can come to you and tell you that this is some things which are missing, and I would be eager to learn from an L&D perspective, from an HR practice perspective.
I think also as an organization which is going through a growth phase, right? CSF for the first almost half our lifespan, which is about 5.5 years, we started with an organization which could sit around a dining table. We actually had a dining table as a working space in our first office because hame laga hum 15-20 jane hi rahenge, right? We grew up to 50, and another aspect as we are growing to becoming a 150 people organization is also we are getting geographically dispersed. So you're no longer able to drive values, culture, behavior. The norming is not happening because this is how we all sit and talk, right? Like for me, one of the standout memories of our early days is we would all sit and have a meal together. And I think a lot of the conversation, whether it was about work, whether it was about what movie you caught over the weekend, whether it was about, another organization that we were interacting with, that we were learning for, that kind of became a very informal enabler because you were, in your prior
Absolutely.
question, you were looking for what the enablers are. Now, how do you replicate that in an organization which is growing, wants to continue to grow, the center of gravity also needs to be where the programs are getting delivered, which is actually stateside and no longer just the headquarters, right? So there's the dichotomy to be managed is growth. There are deliverables, the geographical dispersion. But at the end of the day, how do we retain the core DNA of who we are? And I think that goes back to the values that not only the person at the top, right? It's not just the founder or the CEO or just the leadership team. Are we creating the space for all members of the organization to come together and behave in that manner? See, culture will happen to an organization. It always does. Anytime 5 people come together, some ways of interacting, ways of engaging get established.
Right.
But can we be ahead of it and be more deliberate about the culture that we are building? What are the behaviors we are incentivizing? And I mean, these are not financial
Absolutely.
incentives, right? What is being modeled? What is being encouraged? And to me, a big enabler is giving it time and priority. The thing that takes most effort is programmatically हम क्या करते हैं? ये हमारा काम है. Most conversation will be about what we do and how we do. The second aspect as organizations grow become how we manage all of it, whether it's donor, whether it's sarkar, whether it's a partner organization, whether it's vendors we work with, right? But to even hold these two together, the big enabler is the people. Are we giving it time? Are we putting resources behind it? And resources don't have to be money, right? Resources just have to be, are we creating the spaces? Are we creating the culture
Absolutely.
where there's open and honest communication? And how is the organization nurturing that behavior? I think another interesting experience, at least I can say from CSF's perspective, also, I mean, I think most of us have the tendency to hang around with what's called PLUs, people like us, right? We project ourselves in when we are hiring. Those are, I mean, it's always said, hire the person, if you're stuck at the airport, who would you rather hang out with, have a beer or have a coffee, right? That's the team you want to build. But as organizations grow, as work expands, we have to be deliberate about going about the homogeneity of the people that we are working with, right? Requirements are changing. The ecosystem is changing. COVID meant a very different way of working, whether it's gig economy or what people's expectations are. How do we retain the core DNA of who we are as an organization, as a leadership team? What do we stand for? But allowing space for it to evolve as we expand and grow. And I think to me, the biggest enabler is it a priority for the leadership team? Are we giving it the necessary time? That's the only way things will begin to fall into place. And when I say fall into place, the boundaries will still be fluid, right? It's an evolving conversation. The core value stays the same, but how you engage with a 20 people org or a 150 people org, even for open, authentic communication, needs time and investment.
No, thanks, Chavita. I think really important points from a point of view of enablers, particularly. Also, I think you slightly touched upon it, but would obviously love to hear from you in detail and from other panelists as well. It's really critical. I know we briefly spoke about it recently about the funding trends when it comes to, having investments for the human capital management at the leadership / at every layer, like you are saying. Now, that's definitely a very core aspect of making it happen. I mean, the point of view of moving from intent to action will only happen when you have the right resources for it. Now, there are funders sitting on this panel as well, and then there are also implementation organizations sitting on this panel. Would love to obviously hear from all of you in terms of the challenges that you are currently facing when it comes to investment in particular. I understand there's a priority shift that's required at the senior leadership position, but sometimes, it is kind of a pickle. You're in a pickle situation because, like you're saying, Shavita, that there is a dichotomy sometimes. You're in a growth phase. You want to grow more and more. You want to also put in budgets for programs, and the budgets are also coming for programs. How are you then kind of incorporating, integrating all of those components for your L&D, for your human resource practices? So anybody, maybe Ratna, maybe we can start with you on this. Thank you.
So that's a good question. When you're saying, how are you balancing? It's a constant balancing act because somebody will say, we will fund programs, but we will not fund travel. Somebody else will say that, what do you mean by core program? I want to know the line items that you want. I mean, at the end of the day, we've all come together to do something because we feel there's a need to do it and we want to do it and we understand the space. And that is why we are there first. So purely from a funding perspective. I honestly feel that, this whole deficit of trust that exists is something that is the biggest elephant in the room. Because at one point, and it's on both ends, I wouldn't say it's just funders alone. So you have civil society that distrusts corporate entities, and not just Indian anybody globally, because there's a profit bottom line. But if they don't generate those revenues, they are not being going to be able to support you. And to me, generating revenue is not a bad word, because that's the only thing that's going to make anything sustainable at all. Even as not for profit organizations, we should be looking at ways of securing, garnering, and creating revenue. And unless there is an inflow, there is no way you're going to be able to generate the resources you need to support the programs that you want to do. And also, there's something else, Vartika. The fact is, people who are in the sector are there because they believe in something, they want to do something, and they
Yes.
feel that it's critical, that it needs to be done. Now, people supporting it are at different levels. There are good to do, because it looks good. I look good doing this, right? And then there are those who are invested and really want to support. So there are different players in this space, as far as providing resources are concerned. And somewhere, in some ways, it starts affecting the core essence of a program, because if you're not really large enough and you're not able to push back, you sometimes end up doing things donors want you to do, whereas you really may not want to do it. It's a catch 22. You have people, you've created teams, you've created, programs, you have to sustain them. And for me, that really is a very tough space, because somewhere there needs to be this fund of funds for
Right.
the not-for-profit sector, that will support you in what you want to do and not drive what they think you should be doing, right? So for me, that is critical. But secondly, I would like to also emphasize that if you truly want to attract talent into the sector, I think there's a need to pay better. You cannot expect young people,
Right.
and giving mouthing inanities to a young person with aspirations, like, no, 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 give back to society. And I mean, why would I expect that? They have aspirations, they will get married, they will have children, they will have EMIs, they'll have 100 things they want. So why not, hire the best, but also make sure that you are hiring at a level which is commensurate to the market? Because since we work with the most vulnerable of populations, at least at some level, the best talent would lead to the kind of focus, to the kind of expertise that you want in terms of design, in terms of delivery. There are two learnings. One is learning from the field, but there is also need to have learning at a systems level. We want to
Absolutely.
create those frameworks, right? And they test each other. And only when they test each other are you able to deliver the best results, right? So I really feel that resourcing has to be looked at very differently. It is not patronage.
Hmm.
It cannot be condescending,
Hmm.
right? And that is why there's a need to create neutral platforms where anybody and everybody, irrespective of whether I have a CFO and I'm working in two, districts somewhere, I should be able to as much access that funding as somebody who's large. So I think that is something that needs to be
Sure,
addressed.
sure. Thank you so much, Ratna. I think, the point where you really talked about deficit of trust, and that makes me come to Rukmini. Deficit of trust is definitely something that, I mean, a lot of reports have also really talked about, because there could be cases or there could be examples in the past experiences from both funder as well as the implementation organizations' perspectives, where there has been an imbalance of that trust somewhere. Now, what can the grantees or the potential grantees do? How can we make compelling cases which are evidence backed to be able to really showcase that we require this fund, and you will have to pay what it takes to be able to do that? So Rukmini ma'am, if you can please come in here.
So I think there are all kinds of people who support work like this, large, small, mature, new, and so on. And over a period of time, looking at your own portfolio of funding, you begin to realize who is, interested in what. My one thing that I've seen is the more the supporter, and it doesn't have to be a funder, could be a supporter of different types, spends time in the field close to the real work, the more they are open to understanding the challenges that are there. So I find that we have, there are, like say foundations are mature funders because they have seen many things around the world. They're able to, assess. And many foundations also have, organizational effectiveness grants and so on. And that's come out of many years of realizing that this is a long run game. But we have also a lot of corporate donors who are often doing CSR initially because they are supposed to and slowly get into it. But I find they as well, the more the corporate donors who are spending time with our teams in the field have a better understanding of what is needed. They may not be high up in the hierarchy to be able to organize that. But I think that we have to look at people who support us as people who will be spokespeople, who are going into their CSR committees or boards or whoever it is, to be able to bring a real picture to say that to have an impact of whatever kind, you need people who are well equipped with technical knowledge, well equipped with security and so on. And so I think it's a give and take game. Obviously we all want to have, I mean, from heaven, if unrestricted funds could come, I would pray to whichever God that is. Yeah, but given, I think we have to operate within, and I think this deficit of trust is often, becomes lower when you actually spend time with each other.
Right.
You spend time with that little girl at the back of the room, and then you go back. In fact, we've had donors saying, "Aap aur kyun nahi karte ho?" I've had people, we have a large volunteer-based program in Kashmir, and we had a major donor who came back and said, "You have to pay them all." So I said, "Good news." You tell me how, because we are paying whatever we can pay. So it is also about us learning together, learning together to see what is, and very often funders fund a lot of other people.
Right.
So what are practices that other people do? CSR have employee engagement. We find sometimes there are people who come in as part of that, often come in just to say, "I'll do one Saturday," but then are able to provide, more time. So, ride on people in a nice way to say, what is it, why are they supporting you, and what do they see as the way ahead? And now, especially with the laws saying that CSR can support for 3 years, I find very interesting discussions among partners to say, how do we do real work with this while still meeting whatever the rules and regulations, are.
Thank you, Rukmani. I think very insightful. I think you also spoke a little bit on the lines of the value creation on and rapport building and the funder SPO relationship, which is very important when it also comes to having. Or let's not talk about deficit of trust. Let's talk about how we can build that trust. So let's just change that perspective a little bit, and that brings me to you, Shagun. What do you think in terms of, say, networking platforms, in terms of the events like what we're doing today? What are some of those spaces that can enable such funder SPO relationships going forward?
Yeah, so I think, the discussion has been so rich and interesting so far. I think what I would like to also add from the donor perspective is that just the way, you were saying that a lot of the non-profits are, founder driven. Similarly, a lot of the funding that comes is with, is the whoever is the philanthropist, their funding. And so it becomes very much about their personality, what they want, right? So with Co-Impact, because we are a funding collaborative, so Ratna, we are a fund of funds in a way. And it was a huge challenge in the beginning because that mindset shift that this is my money, what have you done with my money? And it then comes all the way down, and then the burden falls on the recipient organization, right? So somewhere a lot of things also have to change at the level of philanthropy and the way philanthropy is carried out. And I think that, Rukmini, what you are saying is a very, very good thing, that the gap between what's actually happening, why you're doing what's happening on the field, and especially with CSR organizations, I've spoken to them a lot. For a lot of them, it's a thing they have to do, it's a box they have to tick, and a lot of the decisions are taken in the room by people who have no idea of what's happening outside and what is the reality in the development sector, right? And corporate is different. Like, you even just the survival of the fittest kind of thinking, you don't have to do extra, hum bhi to mushkil se aaye hain, hum bhi to pahunch gaye hain, versus saying that no, there are a lot of things that determine where you reach, right? So there is that inherent difference in that philosophy. And I think that all of this sort of starts to play out when you look at the relationship between the funders and the fundies and this trust deficit that you're talking,
Right.
that has been talked about. So at Co-Impact, one of our goals is also to start to shift the philanthropic conversations. And again, like Rukmini, you said, you have to have like a boundary. You can't do everything. You can't have a kitchen sink. So some funders want to fund early stage organizations, co-impact funds more mature organizations, simply because we want to see systems change work, and you need to be able to work with governments to see that scale of work. So that kind of, but within those boundaries, then when you start to look for people, the main idea is that they are experts, these founders, these organizations. Let them do the work of an expert. Let them not get running here to there, funding and this and that. Let them focus on what they do best, which is to create social change and make impact down the line. So that's the philosophy with which we have been working. And it's not a bed of roses, because we give very flexible grants, huge grants, long term, and it's sometimes not that easy to source organizations that can actually absorb and work that way, right? But we have tried very hard on the other side to talk to our donors and kind of say that, look, we are not going to be, even your LME, like learning, measurement, and everyone wants impact. Everyone has different indices. So at Co-Impact, we say only one report, only one set of indicators that you choose. We are not going to keep coming back and saying, ye dikhao, prove this to us, etc. So a lot of change has to happen, but there are constraints at all levels, is what I would.
Thank you so much, Shagun, for that. My question to you, Shavita, might just change a little bit right now, and it always does. So sorry. But, I think we did touch upon it briefly for a while in this conversation. But from a tangibility point of view, in terms of resources, yes, there is obviously a lot that we can talk about. But you did also mention a little bit on the mindset of a CEO, right? And obviously, when you look at lack of resources, can that perception of the mindset that's ingrained in the CEO, can that get shifted to an abundance level where they feel, again, it's a very I would say profound kind of and a very deep kind of a question, but maybe just a little bit from you on that.
I think the entire sector wishes that we could operate with the mindset of abundance. That's just so far from our reality. But no, I think it's important, right? That let's not, the elephant in the room is there's limited resources. There are limited funders or philanthropists like a Co-Impact, which is saying unrestricted money. Of course, we want you to report back on a metric, but we are not, if we put Co-Impact and CSRs, because we also know there are CSRs who are only doing it because मुझे करना है and मेरे को minimum effort डालना है आप, and they might believe आप अच्छा ही काम कर रहे हो, कर लो, जो नपातुला होता है, right? From napatula to the mindset of where a Co-Impact is actually enabling an organization to think in terms of abundance. I think one hack would be that let's not hold back our ideas or initiatives for the lack of resources. Think big and let the reality check come in later. Because if we start with, on an average, we only have 5% available for anything that we want to invest in people, and I really can't do anything, that's where we'll get stuck, right? When we are planning, let's think from a place of abundance and let the pragmatism and the correction come along the way. I will, however, Vartika, take the liberty to go back to this whole previous discussion, right? We are talking about funders. And to me, it's very interesting what Shagun also shared about the Co-Impact philosophy, because it also took a certain level of evolution and maturity for the sector to reach here, where you can get people with big money to revisit their philosophy of philanthropy, right? So I think it's also a sign of, to me, it's hopeful to see that people with deep pockets are willing to relook at how they are giving.
Yes.
And also on the whole trust deficit thing, right? I think somewhere, especially when we talk about human capital, I think a principle that's stood me well is we have to step away from us versus them, right? If I'm a staff, it's me versus the organization, right? मुझे ये लग रहा है, leadership team को नहीं लग रहा. When we are an NGO or a CSO, it's us versus them, me versus the donor. Now, it takes all time to make the world. There will be leaders who will support me and nourish me. There will be leaders who will probably be just resource constrained. But am I investing in building that trust? Am I investing in that relationship? And I think becomes specifically true with donors. Rukmini gave a great example of field immersion, right? Now, there are donors for whom even field immersion or getting to know the team better is very surface level. There could be donors who start small, but who genuinely also invest beyond just the money into the organization.
yes.
And I think just calling that out, that it's a two-way effort. Let's not absolve ourselves of our responsibility in any human equation.
Thank you so much, Avita. I think that was also a great way to kind of conclude this panel, because we are concluding it on the line of and the note of abundance and hopefulness. Again, deep rooted in a lot of philosophical aspects, but from an intent to action perspective, we can always carry forward these conversations for later. Just want to check with my team if we still have time for a Q&A. Is Purnima here? Okay, so I think I also, some of our speakers are also on a tight schedule today, so maybe we can not have Q&A right now, but we can please feel free to talk to them over lunch or tea and coffee if they're staying back, if that's okay with all of you. Thank you so much again for being here, and a huge round of applause for them, please. Requesting you to stay back for the mementos.
I would request the panelists to please accept a small token of appreciation from Vartika. Today centers around dynamic culture dialogues, navigating empathy, entrepreneurship, and empowerment in today's organizational landscape. The purpose of this roundtable discussion is to dig into varied areas of organizational development techniques for change, illuminating the importance of navigating energy, empathy, and entrepreneurial thinking in driving successful change. The following discussion will try to uncover the subtle methods to restructure corporate strategies, policies, and organizational structures to accomplish strategic objectives through collaborative discussions among varied specialists. We have a very interesting lineup of speakers with us today. I will go on to give a brief introduction of each of them. Firstly, we have Dr. Y. Suresh Reddy, Director of SRF Foundation, with us today. Dr. Reddy has hands-on experience in building institutions with teams and systems and processes for admin, HR, finance, IT, branding and communication, knowledge management, legal, accounting, and auditing compliance. He has demonstrated skills in building and managing partnerships with governments, corporates, NGOs, academic institutions, local communities for supporting programs in scaling and sustainably developing them. Dr. Reddy also has extensive experience in CSR management of the parent company and various partner companies, school education, vocational skills, livelihoods programming, natural resource management, health, proposal and budget preparation and implementation in several states, facilitating training programs, engagement of employees, volunteers and interns in program activities. We are very glad to have you, Dr. Reddy.
Excuse me, can the speakers stand up so that we can see?
Next up, we have Ms. Charu S. Budiraja with us, Head Talent Acquisition in Council on Energy, Environment and Water. Ms. Charu is working as the Head of Talent Acquisition with the Council on Energy, Environment and Water. She has 14 years of diverse industry experience on developing and implementing recruitment strategies in niche domains such as software, IT security and cloud, big data analytics, machine learning, and artificial intelligence, among others, for various industries, including but not limited to national defense, aerospace, telecom, and networking. Before CEEW, she was associated with Microsoft in the capacity of lead talent acquisition, where she was responsible for managing the talent sourcing efforts across the Indian continent. Before Microsoft, she worked with Guava's network system, a big data analytics and machine learning company, for close to a decade. Being part of the leadership team, she was heading the global talent acquisition function and was responsible for overall recruiting activities across the organization. She has completed her post-graduation in human resource management from Bharati Vidyapeeth University and did her graduation in finance and banking from Delhi Institute of Management Studies. We're very glad to have you, Ms. Charu. Can I request you to come towards the table? Next up, we have Mr. Ashwin MB, Associate Director of Partnerships at Fortify Health. As the Associate Director of Partnerships, Mr. Ashwin's primary focus has been to expand the Fortify's program in northern India by establishing strategic partnerships with state governments and other organizations. He has played a pivotal role in developing a robust methodology to identify priority states and has devised an expansion strategy for venturing into new regions and forging partnerships. We're very grateful to have you. May I request you to proceed towards the table? Thank you. Next up, we have Mr. Indrajit Chaudhary, CEO and Country Director, PCI India. Mr. Indrajit Chaudhary serves as a CEO and Country Director of PCI India, bringing more than 20 years of experience in managing and conceptualizing large-scale development projects in India and other countries. With a passion for development and flair for innovative thinking, Indrajit provides the organization thought leadership in designing solutions for holistically impacting community development. His expertise in measurements, program designing, and scale-up of intervention is well regarded. He is recognized for integrating health and nutrition interventions into community platforms, resulting in measurable improvements in nutrition indicators, for leading an innovation to develop ICT application for Anganwadi workers that got scaled up nationally in India, and designing several programs that got scaled up globally, as well as establishing one of the largest concurrent measurement mechanisms for outcome assessment. Additionally, Mr. Indrajit specializes in developing strategies for scaling transformative social change programs in alignment with government systems that empower women, girls, and marginalized communities to achieve their aspirations. May I request Mr. Indrajit to proceed to the roundtable? Next up, we have Ms. Mandira Kalra Kalan, Senior Campaign Director and Head of Office India at Purpose. Her role involves overseeing strategy and implementation of campaigns on gender, public health, climate change, youth, and urban informal settlements. Ms. Mandira brings over 17 years of experience in strategic and creative communication and narrative and behavior change communications work in a range of issues. A social anthropologist by training, Ms. Mandira has a strong commitment to working closely with communities to leverage participatory and storytelling approaches to enable those that are most impacted to co-create their solutions. She has worked across issues and multiple mediums, including TV, film, animation, AI, digital, and interpersonal communication. Previously, Ms. Mandira led the communication work at Population Foundation of India, focusing on campaigns and interventions on gender, reproductive health, rights and justice, and adolescent and youth health rights. Ms. Mandira is a social anthropologist from the London School of Economics, an organic vegetable farmer, and the co-founder of Vana, a social entrepreneurship working with traditional weavers across India to support India's handloom workers. When not working, Ms. Mandira can be found reading, writing, cooking, doing yoga, or trying to sanely raise feminist teenage daughters. We're so happy to have you, Ms. Mandira, and can I request you to proceed towards the roundtable? We have Ms. Smita Jha with us, a consultant in the social sector. Ms. Smita Jha is a seasoned professional with close to 3 decades in leadership roles across organizations. Ms. Smita brings with her passion and track record of consulting and corporate experience in the social impact sector. In her professional journey, Ms. Smita has built several successful organizations and practices from ground up and has a proven track record of bringing direction, scale, and growth to her own organization, clients, and partners. Ms. Smita thrives in solving complex problems, transforming organizations, and bringing shape and scale to bold visions. Ms. Smita switched to the social impact sector to bring her domain expertise in strategy, scale, and transformation to the development sector. In her last role, Ms. Smita set up BCG's nonprofit foundation in India called Center for Public Impact as their India/Asia director, as well as the global director for GDI, Global Development Initiatives, which works with governments, multilaterals, foundations, and nonprofit organizations in the global south, focused on Africa and the rest of Asia. Prior to this, Ms. Smita set up nonprofit foundation CGIS for noted philanthropist Ashish Dhawan. May I request Ms. Smita to come to the round table? Next up, we have Ms. Neha Banerjee, Senior Consultant, Social Sector Communications at MASH. Ms. Neha has worked in the media ecosystem for over a decade, and through the roles, she has worked to create impact and growth for organizations. She has worked as a journalist, media investment manager, and strategic partnerships for India's top news aggregator. Some of her volunteering work includes work with Unis Social Business, Facebook, and ACT Grants. May I request Ms. Neha to come to the roundtable? And we will shortly be joined by Ms. Kanika Verma, Green and Inclusive Entrepreneurship Lead at Development Alternatives. Ms. Kanika is deeply committed to driving social innovation and systemic change. Her passion lies in building bridges from grassroots work to global discourse on inclusive innovation, entrepreneurship, and the future of work. Ms. Kanika is also part of the Schwab Foundation Working Group for Building the Social Economy in India. In her current role, she spearheads a social innovation platform, Action and Learning, to boost job growth for women and youth in India. Ms. Kanika also leads initiatives geared towards the energy transition of rural micro-enterprises driven by women collectives. Additionally, she is a co-founder of System Players, a collaborative platform dedicated to nurturing implementation and learning among system innovators. Ms. Kanika is currently pursuing an MPhil, specializing in inclusive innovation at the University of Cape Town. And Ms. Kanika has led a financial investment firm in USA for 7 years prior to joining Development Alternatives Group in 2011 to pursue her ambition of being a social entrepreneur. We're so glad to have you, Ms. Kanika. I guess she has joined. This session will be moderated by our very own Ms. Nandita Krishnan, Associate Vice President, Organizational Development at Arthan. Ms. Nandita leads organizational development at Arthan. She is an experienced HR professional with expertise across industries and geographies. A subject matter expert in progressive HR policies and practices, she has a strong understanding of HR legislations across several countries and regions and key HR verticals, including compliances, strategic planning, policy formulation, employee engagement, people management, and the entire employee lifecycle management. She has been awarded with an honorary doctorate by the Ministry of External Affairs for her workshop for foreign delegates on leadership mindset and development. A diversity and inclusion expert, she conducts awareness sessions on bias, allyship, and other inclusion strategies for corporates. A certified NLP practitioner, she has a good understanding of people in different life stages. She often speaks on various HR topics in institutions and universities across the country and shares her experience as an HR leader, and her opinions are frequently published in leading publications. Without further ado, I will hand it over to Nandita to begin the roundtable discussion.
Thank you so much for that, Shivani. And good afternoon, everyone. I hope we've all had a good lunch, desserts, and everything. And I would want every one of us to be high on energy. I'm rotating so that I can see everyone in the room right now. Before I take my place at this round table with everyone here and our esteemed speakers, I would want to thank all of you for taking out time, coming in, and being a part of this insightful summit that we are trying to brainstorm at for driving strategies in the social impact. Smita will be here shortly. But before we start and I ask questions with our speakers and they share their knowledge and experiences and all of that, I have a question for everybody here attending this round table with us. And please feel free to raise your hands and give us an answer to what does a dynamic workplace culture mean for all of you? Anyone? Yes, please. Rapid growth and inclusivity. Just a second. Can I have someone from our team note this? You're doing that? Thanks. Thanks, Maria. Oh, you're standing with the mic. You can also contribute. Yes, please. Okay. Thank you. Changing the definition of inclusivity. Broadening the horizon? Thank you. Yes, please. Okay. Wow. Thank you. Yes.
Post-COVID, I think earlier also it was existing, but I think post-COVID is, I think change management is one of the biggest aspects which have come, and how people are leveraging that in versus different industries.
Thank you. We've got that. Yes, ma'am.
The model is good, scalable, adaptable, and reachable for all inclusive.
Scalable, adaptable, and reachable model for everybody. Thank you. Yes, please. Super. Thank you. Collaborative. Yes. Okay. Yeah, which super. Anybody from here? Yes, please. Noted. We've got that. Okay, so making sure that the opportunities reach everybody across the country equally, and we have a talent pool accordingly, accessible for everybody. Anyone else? Are we good? Yes, please. Great. Work-life balance and adaptability from that. Yes, sir. Tolerance. Nice.
Integrating disability justice and not just thinking of it as an afterthought.
Integrating, sorry.
Disability justice
Yeah.
right from the get-go and not thinking of it as an afterthought.
Brilliant. Yes, please.
Diverse perspectives across teams, across
Hmm. Thank you. Yes, Shani. Gender equality at workplace. Okay. Great. Yes, and this will have to be my last one, else our speakers will not be able to take it up. Open to take constructive feedback. Wow. Only take and not give. I think that is something that is very challenging for a lot of leaders these days, to give and receive constructive feedback, right? Great. So thank you so much, everyone. Yes.
making sure that there's no discrimination on the basis of language in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Even though when we say diversity, sometimes it happens like we merit process in a way वहाँ पे हम language को barrier बना देते हैं, वो barrier नहीं होना चाहिए.
Brilliant. So what I hear all of us say is a lot of different spectrum of diversity, whether it is language, whether it is gender, whether it is disability, it is generation, workforce generations, it's sexual orientation, it's race, it's ethnicity. Inclusion for all is what I hear, is what a dynamic workplace culture means for all of us, right? And taking cue from that, I think I'll put a question on the table and take my seat with that. That, leadership at the realm of social impact can be quite complex, especially when we're dealing with such a diverse workforce. We just heard what dynamism means for everyone, right? So with numerous stakeholders involved, diverse groups involved, with different interests, needs, wants, how can adaptive leadership strategies be employed to facilitate open dialogue and create this dynamic workplace culture, which is a need of the hour as we see and hear from across? Anybody, please. Wow. Please, Dr. Reddy.
Yeah. So I representing the SRF Foundation based out of the Gurgaon. I have been there for last 15 years, but in the social sector for last 26 years. And being the CEO of the SRF Foundation, it is my responsibility to build the organization. So when I joined, just it is me and one more gentleman was there. So today we have 170 people spread across the 12 states and the head office in Gurgaon and 24 project offices in 12 states. They are there. They are working as a team. When you see this team as two levels, the people who are working on the ground, mostly they are the local people because the purposefully we recruit the people locally because of sustainability point of view. They know the local culture, local language, local geography, and local system process kind of thing. That is the reason we choose the local people to manage the projects on the ground. It may be in Karnataka, Bengaluru, or Chennai, Trichy, Salem, or Kamrup in Assam, or Uttarakhand in Dehradun in Uttarakhand. We were different places. Head office, we have the people, they represent across the nation. And not necessarily any particular geography and kind of thing, but mostly based on the skills and talent and knowledge, experience. Based on that, they can be here in head office. So that is how we look at the when recruiting the people, and also SRF Foundation being a implementing organization. It is a CSR organization, but not the funding to the other NGOs to implement the program. We ourselves implement the program for our own parental company and also implement the programs for the other companies as well. So while doing this program, it is not the cozy job for the people who come to the foundation. Mostly people prefer to come to the office, jobs preferably, which is more in office based and desk based job and little bit traveling to the metros or cities and kind of thing. So most coming from the upper middle class family or private school educated or management school background. Such people mostly lot of supply is there. Lot of supply is there. But when come to the implementation on the ground, we need different kind of people. And say empathy not just only for within the organization for collaboration, coordination, different diversity people, but on the ground we work with the less privileged. The subsistence market. When you talk about subsistence market, low literacy, low income people are there with whom we are working. Unless until you have the passion to be in this sector, be on the ground, dirty your hands, and especially the youngsters. I'm talking about the youngsters who finishing the college and coming to the career point of view, at least before marriage. That what are the 5 6 years of time available? That is the time they have to immerse themselves, be on the ground, and get the solid foundation. I'm talking about understanding the issues, the problems, aspirations, solutions. And those things. It makes you a good leader when you grow up the middle level and senior level kind of thing with a strong foundation. So getting such people is very, very difficult. A lot of people are there, but everybody wants to be the office-based job, Gurgaon-based job, but not the field-based jobs. That is the one biggest challenge. So where the empathy talking about, you don't look at as a career point of view. I need a job, I need a good salary and good work environment kind of thing. That's okay. If you have the passion to this sector, then this is the right sector. If you want to go corporate world, that's different world together altogether. There's no question on that. At the same time, when within the organization also, when two people know 170, it has organically grown. So when the twofold, one is the portfolio enhancement of the organization, and also organization with the systems and the process and the people. They're also growing together, like the balancing both things together and build the talent within the system. When you talk about the leadership within the organization, those who are the people already have been with us for quite some time doing on the ground, they are the people going to next level, rather than somebody coming from the outside being putting there in the place kind of thing. Again, there are challenges are there. The challenges means those who come from the management schools and private school educated upper middle class family, they come with the good technology background, skills and competencies, good writing and documentation kind of thing. But the domain knowledge, being an implementation, it may be education, health, skilling, sanitation, or any program, any domain, choose that. The domain knowledge is totally zero. So unless until you have domain knowledge, though you may have other skills. So you may not be can't make an informed choices or decisions and strategies for the program kind of thing. That's the biggest the gap point of view. So that's how we see when we're building the organization. We see the thing either the people are local people for the local operations point of view. Then second thing at head office level, either the people have some kind of exposure, socio-economic background where they're coming from. So when I talk about India and Bharat, I'm not talking about political India Bharat. I'm talking about in general. India means the upper society, Bharat means lower society, and kind of thing. People talk about the people coming from that background. They can have some understanding because they're coming from that level, and they have their aspirations, and they can understand other people what the issues and needs and kind of thing. So that brings the both inside and outside the organization, the leadership and the empathy, empowerment, all those things. That's how we are promoting the organizational culture and the SRF Foundation. I stop it here. Great. Then
Yeah, I'm dying to.
I know.
And I think I can see it in your expressions that you're dying as well.
We try to be inclusive as well.
No, I want to put in a very different perspective. So for me, starting off, and I hope I don't take away, what you guys want to say, but I can sort of see it in your eyes. I fundamentally have a challenge with the word leader in the social sector, because I think the fact that when we call this as a social sector and not say a private sector, because the differentiation, the primary differentiation is because of the complexity of the challenges that we're trying to solve in the social sector. In the private sector, the challenges that you're solving are pretty much standardized over a period of years. You know how to sell a shampoo and you know how to sell a soap. And if you can do that, you can also sell a Coca-Cola bottle, or, it's become pretty standard. HR functions are well defined, finance functions are well defined. In our social sector, it's not like that. The problems are so complex that there is no ready solution. And that is why those problems are existing and they haven't been solved for. So for somebody to come and step into the social sector, the first thing that comes is that it needs to be well understood with the first principles. And different people and different actors in the ecosystem need to come together to be able to solve this, because it's a systemic change that we're trying to bring out. You can't just say that, okay, I've sold a soap and I've solved for the hygiene problem. It doesn't work like that. So there's so many levels of that change, and hence you need different players in the market, actors in the market, whatever name you want to call them. And so there is no concept of a leader. The concept of the role or the the JD of a leader, so to say, is actually a systems orchestrator. Because the idea is that you bring in different parts, different relevant skills, different relevant experiences, and it doesn't matter where they come from, or whether they come from a private sector or a government sector, or they're sitting in the fancy offices. I just don't agree with all those things. It really depends on what is the value that you're bringing to that collaborative, that organization, and the role of the so-called leader is actually not a leader but a systems orchestrator. So that's number one that I wanted to share, but I want to give you guys an opportunity.
No, you sort of echoing a little bit of what I had in my mind. So I think before we answer the question of what we need or what is offered, I think we need to also sort of step back a little bit and look at the role of us as social purpose organizations, and then think of how do we want to create this space. I think you mentioned. Okay. I think you sort of mentioned it, the kind of complexity we need to navigate, which is even becoming more complex, the kind of systemic lens that is required. I think an either or approach is not going to ever work. And we talk a lot about inclusion. A lot of people mention inclusion, but we have to ask ourselves, are we including everyone in that conversation? If we expect inclusion, then are we also providing that space for inclusion? Because our kind of work will require working with people who have conflicting objectives. That is what systemic change is about. That's what social innovation is about. Or sort of navigating complexities where it's about our role as a facilitator in the spaces we work, where this whole mindset of we have come here to do something for beneficiaries has to sort of go away. In fact, in our team, in our organization, beneficiary word is banned. In fact, I think we take away a lot more from these spaces than we're able to give. So I think we have to start sort of thinking a lot about that. I think again, in terms of an either or kind of, I would like to contrast that more with how do you learn and you act, the balance between the two. Are we investing enough in learning, enabling us to have adaptive management? Or are we just saying, oh, someone's going to implement and someone's going to sit on a desk, right? And I think we need to sort of think about these kind of things. The last point I have, and then I'm sure everyone wants to sort of add, is also, if we want inclusion, then we have to also remember that inclusion is not a static concept. It's not a destination. Oh, suddenly we are all inclusive. It's a journey. And we'll never, and with that sort of mindset, you also need a lot of vulnerability. In fact, I tell all my team members that, look, vulnerability is a superpower if you just try, that sort of thing. So I think these are some of the things that we have to consider.
Right. So if I can just add to what my panelists are speaking. I think one important aspect here is that person building an organization in the social sector needs to really identify the intent of the other person. I know whether the person might not have all the skills, probably he or she cannot work long hours, maybe can give 5 hours of their daily routine. But if he or she is coming with the right intent and is coming with the intent to bring about change, that's something that needs to be identified and included.
So I just wanted to take actually, Smitha, from what you said about there are no leaders and push it one step further, but there is leadership. And when we talk about adapted leadership, I think and I don't want to speak for the panel, but I think for me, it is about finding ways for everybody to find that pathway for leadership. That is that's how we solve complex problems. Everybody comes to the table with different skill sets, different viewpoints, different perspectives. I remember earlier when you were asking for responses from the floor, I think we defined adaptive leadership in all the responses we got. We were not required. But so much of what we heard was about expanding our ideas of what inclusivity means, what that pathway looks like, expanding diverse perspectives. And a lot of that has to do with finding avenues of what leadership looks like for all of those diverse perspectives.
Yeah, maybe I can take here from what Smita said and what Mandira is also talking about. I think I'll say that yes, complexity is one of the key things that social sector has. And at the moment, earlier there used to be a lot of people coming from corporate to social sector. We are also seeing the reverse trend now. People from social sector are being hired by the corporate sector because the kind of complexity that we handle in social sector, probably in most of the corporates where we are selling shampoo, we are not handling that kind of changes. But we are trained to work with this kind of a grayish environment, kind of a like a VUCA world for a very, very long time, which the entire world is facing now because the speed of change has become much more rapid than it used to be 30 years, 20 years, 10 years back. So a lot of people are going, so a lot of complexities in the sector. I'll try to say how, I'll not want to repeat all that others talked about. I'll say how we do it. Some of these things can be inculcated in a organizational setup, because all of us work in the organizational setup. And I'll also talk about, probably I started my journey with Pradhan as an organization where I stayed pretty long, many years worked in tribal areas and stayed over there, so I can understand what Dr. Reddy is talking about, and also understand where how all the there is no binaries, like people who are implementing, people who are sitting and making so that binary is not there. In Pradhan, the way we used to function is that everybody was working in the field. Everybody was working the strategy as well. So that was a very, very ideal world scenario. In my organization, PCI, it is not possible because those were different days, the funding system was different, etc. In our case, what we try to do, I'll try to talk about 2-3 things that we try to do, and we have also grown from being a small organization to now around 300 people in the organization. So it's also very difficult to, the kind of connect that I used to have with everybody earlier, the kind of connect that I have now is very different. Like I cannot I cannot have connect with everybody. So similarly, the entire organizational it is difficult to create a culture within the organization when there are so many people are working in different places. So we have tried to, and as all the leaders, I'm saying leaders because I'm conscious about what Smita has talked about, but all the leaders within my organization, I think I'll say it is primarily about people who are managing teams, managing projects, managing geographies, etc., etc. So the three things we have thought of. One is about transparency. So transparency, I think, is the core of everything. And as Kanika was talking about vulnerability, I'll say vulnerability increases as we increase the transparency, because like if people know about my salary, I know I'll be accountable for performing that way, and I don't hide that. So transparency is one thing that is very, very important. Second thing that of course was coming from here as well is about flexibility. So flexibility is easier said than done. Flexibility is very, very difficult. Like I know that I am and for not-for-profit organizations, or we call ourselves for impact organization, because I don't like the not-for-profit word. So you should not start any name with not. You don't say that I am not Mandira, I am not Dr. Reddy. I say that I am Indrajit. So I love talking about ourselves as a for impact organizations. So we are a for impact organizations, and for our kind of organizations, there are deliveries that the donor will expect. There are deliveries that probably some CSR foundation will expect, and within that kind of an environment, how you can also nurture flexibility, where I understand that Mandira is unwell today and she is not going to work today, and her work should be done by somebody else. She is her daughter is not doing well, so she probably need to stay back at home, or something like that. So to do that is very, very difficult, like in a real world scenario. And how we can do the flexibility, I'll give you one example, even not shooting too much time. I'm being conscious about time, but just to say, the way we do it, practice it particularly by making more than one people involved in all the jobs. So kind of cross, people are working in one project doesn't mean that they will work only in one project. It's like the cross leveraging from different projects. That's one way. I can talk about the nitty-gritties of operationalization of this, because I have done it for quite long time. And the third thing, probably I'd not leave it without saying, I think it is more about respecting everybody. So when you're talking about respecting our community, we should talk about respecting all our employees, and everybody has capability. So if we have faith on the capability of everybody and respect their capability, then it is a job of so-called system orchestrator or leader, or whatever you call it. It is about finding the right hole for the pig, instead of trying to see who is fitting where. If I understand that Nandita has these capabilities, then what is the right place to fit her, as well as what is her inclination, what is her individual passion. And if her individual passion and what she's working on are similar, then probably she will be able to deliver the best, and will be enjoying, and will be happy and individual happiness creates overall organizational happiness that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything from you, Charu? And then maybe Ashwin, you can share too.
Everyone had covered almost everything, but I have a little different, not different, I mean, in addition to whatever everyone has covered. Coming back to your question, it should come from the leadership. It should flow from the leadership, right? When you're talking about the strategies with respect to social impact organization. And second, very, very important aspect, less is more. You need to have those, laser sharp technology strategies where, you should be able to connect the dots. What is happening in a social impact organization across, the sector? Understand that. Understand your organizational priorities. What do you want to achieve? What do you impact you want to create on the social sector? And most importantly, what kind of talent can fuel to that? What kind of talent you want to bring into the organization so that overall you would be making a impact at scale. And last but not the least, it's very, very important, as you asked about, how do you open dialogue forum and all, right? So I think it's very, very important that you need to have maybe an OKR ways of creating a goal to make sure that everyone is bringing on a same page, alignment to the organization objective, what you want to, create an impact on the social sector, and most importantly, creating those forums where we have an open dialogue, open for the feedback, so that we are aligned with the overall strategy. So that's my answer. Thank you.
Yeah, so in my head, I was like, there's a game called Taboo where you're not supposed to say some words. So I was like thinking in my head, what should I use instead of leadership to convey that word? And also I think non-for-profit I can't use, so I have to think about other word for that. And
You have made the question more tougher for you.
exactly. Now I've forgotten the question and thinking about the game. But thinking about empathy and empowerment, how we look at it, at least at Fortify Health, is we think about empowerment. If we want to empower someone, it is rooted in empathy. We want, for example, like in our organization, majority of the staff comes from tier 2 cities. And they are the ones we want to build them into becoming future managers and like leaderships. But, but we want to groom them. And to understand that, we have to put ourselves in their shoes of what is it that could stop them from becoming future leaders. And for that, how we're thinking about is, okay, some of the things that we could do on a short term that could help us and them in future is like communication skills, how to make great presentations, how to be articulate, persuasive, and effective communicators. Now, we conduct workshops for it. I know Dr. Rukmani had said that workshops are waste of time, but what we do on top of that is we actually try to ensure that rigor stays even after that workshop is done. So every time there is a presentation, we go back and tell that how you could improve on something like that. And that is how we try to empower. And once you empower, and we have seen this, like to quote Hamilton, is like they're young, scrappy, and hungry sort of a people. They want to learn, but sometimes they're not given even enough avenue. And once we actually give these kinds of skills, they actually come and tell that, yes, this is something that we did not know about. Thank you so much. And that is what we pride ourselves in, is empowering our employees to become future leaders that is rooted in empathy.
Brilliant. Yes, please, Dr. Reddy.
Now, regarding the leadership you are talking about, when you say what we practice at the foundation is that think like a CEO of your own business. So if you have the head office or field office, those are the people in charge for the particular vertical sector business kind of thing. It is not that who is heading the foundation is the leader only. So everyone who joins in the foundation at whatever level they are there, just think like a CEO of your own vertical, your own business. A foundation provides only platform to you. So how you perform as a leader, that is in your hands only. So like a CEO means to take end-to-end responsibility. Like somebody is delivering the program on the ground. So he or she has to take responsibility of designing, implementing, monitoring, documenting, talking about coordinating with the partners, liaising with the HR department, finance department, admin department, communication department, everything. Think like CEO. Tomorrow you become the head of the institution, the kind of thing, or within the SRF foundation itself, or outside also. So the change, the thinking mindset. That is what it helps the organization as well. There are no more dependents on somebody for each and everything. Otherwise, you are dependent for everything. You are like a follower. Somebody tells something, you do it. Otherwise, you don't do it. So think like a CEO. At the same time, it is your responsibility, the people who are working below you, that how much opportunities you are giving to them, how much you are delegating to them, kind of thing. And you can. Everybody has contributing their own way and kind of thing. That is the philosophy we follow at SRF Foundation. So think like a CEO of your own business.
So I hear you use the word entrepreneurship. Everybody needs to be an entrepreneur. And that is how you drive business growth.
Yes, that is one thing. And second thing also, you see, if you are spending ₹1 from your pocket for the program somebody is given, how you can multiply that ₹1 into ₹3, ₹4 by building the collaborations. Collaborations at a macro level and collaborations at the micro level. My organization didn't ask me to build the partnerships. It asked me that whatever little kitty we are having, just deliver it, kind of thing. But knowing the sector, knowing the possibilities, so it is my responsibility, being a CEO of my business, what are the opportunities are there? How can I bring in that? So today, the foundation implements the program, not just only its parental company of SRF, but also the companies like the Microsoft or IBM or Capgemini, Tetra Pak or Amway India, they are much more bigger than the SRF. Yes, so that is how the thinking. That's why I say people on the micro level also, ground level also, don't depending on what foundation gives you to deliver things there. So see within the community, within the government departments, how much you can, because you are doing for the government schools, not for your own benefit, your own service kind of thing. You are doing something for the social impact there. So in that process, involve, engage them, and get the mobilization support. Because sustainability point of view, we are just playing a role of as a facilitator to bring the people together and of creating a platform for them and help them how they can take care of themselves. Thank you.
Right.
And
Yes,
sorry,
Shweta.
I'm still dying to say something more.
Please go ahead.
And I also want to help Ashwin remove the jargons. I hear you. I really hear you. So I wanted to give a couple of examples and make this real, because otherwise it becomes a little theoretical in terms of discussions, and it's the big words that are being used. So I think the first thing that a lot of people said in the room and on the table is that we should have passion, and we should have empathy, and we should have respect. And in my organizations, when I led them, and we were sort of drawing up the value systems, and we were like, but isn't everyone empathy, passionate? Why is a person A more passionate or less passionate? I mean, how can you define that? It's almost derogatory to ask in an interview that, oh, do you align with our values? And what are your values? Honesty, integrity, passion. Yeah, of course, everyone, even, so hardworking. Of course, even the guard standing outside our door is really hardworking. He's standing on his feet for 12 hours. So we found it actually very derogatory to put values which are judging your ethics and your principles. Your values have to, so we decided that our values have to be driven and aligned to our purpose. So as a consultant, our purpose was to make the change makers more successful, whether they're in the private sector or in the social sector, to be actually more effective in whatever work they're doing. If they're doing it for a profitability angle in a private sector, so be it. If you're working on an impact area, so be it. So as a consultant, that was our purpose. Our purpose was to make the change maker successful, and to be able to be really relevant in that. The first thing that we needed to be is be courageous, because we needed to call a spade a spade. We were going to founders and saying that, sorry, you're not doing the right thing. So our number one value in our organization was being courageous, and that's all that it meant. And that's what we had to live it. And then, because otherwise the other challenge is that, oh, you have these fancy principles sitting on your website. How do you live them day to day? And we would then sort of make sure that everybody in our teams is courageous, that at whatever level they were engaging with the change makers, they had that. So that's one example. The second thing that we hear a lot of times, empowerment, we are a startup, but nobody understands what a startup is. The real empowerment, if in the private sector, if you see with the startups, is that if somebody is taking on taking on an HR function, or one of the founders is taking on a finance function, the other founders will never question what they're doing. They won't have any processes, they won't have any systems, because they're a startup, but there was this trust. But how was that trust coming in? Because they had a shared purpose. And I think that's enough. As long as the teams are coming in together to solve for a purpose, the shared purpose is already there. The only thing on a day-to-day matter that we felt was to make it everything transparent. So for us, empowerment meant transparency. And a simple example was that if you were looking at travel budgets, the finance team would sort of say that, okay, this is the amount of budget that we have for travel for the entire team, from the, whether it's a CEO or whether it's anybody else, it doesn't matter. There was a Google spreadsheet. And if I have to travel 5 times, I would just enter, think that, okay, I'm using not this much money, this much money, this much. Nobody was said that, oh, Smita, you're not allowed, and someone is allowed, and why are you taking this trip, and why are you taking this, business class, or you're staying in this hotel. It doesn't matter. It's there for everyone to see. Each and everyone's salary was on the Google Drive. You can go out and see that. So as long as you make things transparent and give them the power to make decisions on their own. So I'm not going to challenge a program manager saying, oh, I have to travel 5 times. It doesn't matter. There's a budget here. Everything is available. Everything is transparent. That is real empowerment. So I think when people say, we should trust and, we thought that transparency would be able to do that. Similarly, the self-management. But I'll stop here.
No, it seems like we are obviously going in a certain sequence, but hopefully the last time we're going in a sequence. But I do want to address this thing of values, as well as you brought up entrepreneurship, and I felt like I needed to say something. For the longest time, I always used to say that we recruit on the basis of values. If the value system matches, then that's more important than even the right skills or even the strengths a person brings, because everything else you can really learn, values you can't. But I also thought that it's also a very transactional way of thinking things, and there's an expectation constantly when I'm thinking in that direction, and I sort of, over the years, I sort of moved it, changed it to looking at recruitment or getting new team members from the point of view of, if we have the right person, we will fit the job profile for that person and not fit a person for the job profile. And that sort of changed the equation. I think still a lot of people get startled by it, because suddenly someone but what are you hiring me for? And I'd be like, we will let you know in the second round, because we're still actually building it and all that. So I think a lot of times when we expect all these things, I think it's sort of a two-way kind of thing. I mean, if you want to create that relational space, then I think each one of us need to look at that. One of the side benefits of working in entrepreneurship is that you also end up having a lot of team members that you lose to entrepreneurship. So I've seen a lot of that in my team, considering that that's what we do. And it's one thing that distinction that I've seen my team members make constantly is the distinction between a manager and an entrepreneur. I mean, it's not like I'm a manager and I will do some things and I will give the best service. But I think when they transition to an entrepreneur, they're constantly thinking of, okay, what innovation will build that bridge and the gap that exists in the community? And that for me is, and I'm going to throw more jargon, you call it system orchestrators, we call it system entrepreneurship. So because it's sort of, you're looking constantly at the systems, you find the gaps in the system and say, okay, you know what? This is what can address it. So if there is a women mobility challenge, we're not going to find a solution where women can work at home, but we're going to find a solution where women can find mobility as a solution, where maybe e-rickshaws run by women are the solution.
Great. Wow. Okay. So I'm trying to figure out where do I start from now, but I think I'll come to you, Mandira. I think as a social anthropologist that you have a unique perspective on understanding cultural dynamics, right? Can you possibly share your views on how organizations can effectively incorporate the cultural sensitivity and awareness around it? I mean, we've been hearing at Fortify Health, we look at hiring a lot of people from tier 2 cities. We hire local talent at SRF, We've all been speaking about it, but hiring is one thing, creating that sensitivity and awareness around it, grooming them is, yes, also important, but they work in the larger workforce. How do you create that sensitivity and awareness in organizations?
So thank you for suggesting that maybe as an anthropologist I have a special view, but I think I don't really have a special view. I think it's more rather the years of just working, which is where that view comes from. So I've come to it from two perspectives. I'd like to talk one about an inherent dynamic that, for instance, we have at Purpose, which we're constantly dealing with in the view of cultural sensitivities, which is that we're a global and a local organization. And so it is always a balance of what that means. For instance, to take something like diversity or something like inclusivity, it is not about simply taking the mandates or the guidelines that might come out of a global approach and reproducing them in India. That's it. It is about, and much of our thinking has been about, how do we co-create, how do we co-design what these words mean for us, and not necessarily what they mean for the social sector, but what they mean for us as an organization. And taking a step back, that also comes from the view that organizational culture and values and these big words, these words which have all kinds of heaviness, don't lie in an organization. They don't lie in leadership in an organization. They don't lie in senior leadership teams or whatever you call them. They lie with every individual who works at Purpose. And so for us, it's literally been about, and I think that's where the anthropologist maybe kicks in, it's participatory. It has literally been about trying to define and acknowledging that I don't have the answers. I need to understand from everybody we work with what these mean to them and what kind of organization we all want to build together. And we do use the word startup and things like that when we talk about Purpose. And even though we're about to be 15 next year, so, but maybe troublesome teenagers is the right way to look at it. But I think it's been, for us, the journey has been, the journey to inclusivity, the journey to cultural sensitivity has really been one about constantly interrogating each other, constantly asking questions. We don't have it down perfectly, and acknowledging that. And I think, Kanika, you said this right at the beginning. It's not an outcome. Inclusivity is not an eventual outcome that I have to, kind of report under some log frame. It is approach to how I want my organization to run, how it looks, how different people may come to it and experience it. What does that mean? And I think, Indrajit, you were talking about this a little bit, and I think somebody else as well, I forget who, but so much is, one is about talking about these things, that we want to be inclusive, we want to be diverse, but what does that mean? Like, what is the reality? And sometimes those realities are difficult. Like, we have always said we wanted to recruit across India, but for the longest time, not a single job description went out in Hindi, or any other language for that matter. Every job description went out on English language websites. And it was a process of learning of how do we fix that, because we didn't know where to start. It was about saying, okay, yes, we've done the job description in Hindi and we've done it in Kannada because, we were, at the time, there was work that we were looking for in Bangalore, for instance. But beyond that, then where do you send it? Who do you send it to? How do you get it out there? And in that thing, I think in our sector, our partnerships are critical. And for at least us at Purpose, it has been about not just interrogating ourselves as an organization, but really having that constant conversation with partners, with all the kinds of different partners we work with, to really think through what some of these things mean for them. We're a global organization. That means we also have offices in France. We have offices in Brazil. It has been about a very difficult and painful process of having translation for global meetings. It has been about thinking through, and we actually recently had a discussion about this, that while we say that we're a disability just organization, can we actually have, are we set up in terms of pure play logistics and infrastructure to work that way? Because it's not simply about having, what is that? We encourage women and
Equal
impacted
opportunity
communities.
employer.
Exactly. That sentence means nothing, and we all know it means nothing. It's about having accessible, private, safe feedback systems. Feedback that people feel comfortable giving on me, and on, global CIO. And we've actually, I think, I don't think we've been perfect, but we've been fairly successful at trying to do some of those pieces. And a lot of it is about transparency, like many others have talked about, talking upfront about what salaries are like, paying people fair wages, having salary equity. These are all parts of that process of building inclusivity, building cultural sensitivities. Because so often we go out and we say we will hire from different geographies, try and break down the overly English metro-based focus of our hiring. And then we say, oh, so what's your salary expectation in the interview? And if somebody doesn't actually know what those salary expectations could potentially be, they always start on a back foot. It's about putting the salary band on the job descriptions, so it's clear and open to everybody. Yeah, so those are just some of them. And I think it's been a process. But for me, I think, to go back to your initial piece, that what is it about being an anthropologist, or what is it about coming from even a communication background? It's about trying to identify what are the barriers, what is the messaging we can give, how do we change that messaging and do it. I'm a comms agency, I'm a communicator, that's how I come to things. How do we make this participatory? How do we co-create? How do we co-design? How do we bring everybody? I always say, co-creating solutions with those who are most impacted. How do I co-create solutions with the people who have, for instance, just this morning, we realized that we have struggles. We are not entirely fair. There was a question about being entirely fair in terms of full-time employees and full-time contractors. And we've actually have somebody who's made the move from a full-time contractor to a full-time employee. And they are going to be working closely with me to actually find and define those pain points, because I don't understand fully those pain points. They have pointed those pain points out and said, here is where those pain points are. We need to change. And how do we change these pieces? So constantly having those conversations and finding dialogues to adjust.
Thank you. Thank you, Mandira. Constant conversations and dialogues. I think I'll move to you, Charu. You have mic. You have also transitioned from a technology-driven industry, right, to a social impact organization. Can you share how the adoption of your constant dialogues, hiring for the right people, we've also spoken about talent acquisition and all of that. So can you probably share some of your experience on the adoption of your talent acquisition strategies to align with the values, vision, purpose, goals, right? And have those positive societal change that we are looking at.
Thank you, Nandita, for asking this question. First of all, I strongly believe recruiting strategies is one thing. You try to solve some problems and try to find the best talent out of market. But for me, when I had thought of shifting from Microsoft and joining a organization like CW, everybody has asked in my family why you've been deciding, why not Google, why not Amazon next, right? So I think one of the reason you should be able to succeed and being able to transform yourself is to find your purpose, why. And in fact, this is one of the questions has been asked by me in my interview at CW, that what is your purpose, why you are here, why do you want to join us? And I strongly felt that probably coming from a family background where my father-in-law was an IAS officer, my husband was a chief manager into Bank of Baroda, so I had that mindset, and I felt like there is something, maybe 0.001% I'll be able to contribute to overall society and for India, because we are the people who are actually trying to dig into the issues related to resources, specifically with respect to CW, and then helping state and central government to bring those public policies in place to take well-informed decisions. So I felt like somewhere I connected. That's number one. That was my purpose to join here. And when you have your passion plus your purpose, I think nobody can stop you achieving anything you want. In fact, and everybody in my organization keep asking, how's it going, Charu? How's it been 1.5 months? How are you dealing with, right? And I feel I'm really enjoying. Trust me, and especially in recruiting, I would like to call it out. Most of the people in recruitment feel like it's very monotonous job. बहुत tiring हो जाता है कैसे करते हो it's like a telecaller job people might call it up right how do you build your strategies I feel that if you have passion which is connected with your organization mission you understand the value you understand what you want to bring to the table you have your ways out to find out the solutions so my strategy when I joined coming back to your answer is only one thing one that I read a lot about CW, read a lot about the social sector, and now being here, hearing from all of these leaders as well, I'm just trying to help myself that how can I be, I can upskill myself, be better. I've done 14 years. That's my forte. I had a lot of challenging opportunities throughout my career where I had different set of business stakeholders in Microsoft in my previous organization. But trust me, one of the things which kept me moving and I've been able to successful in being here is, even if you fail at something, you feel something is not working well, get up, push yourself, get your things done, and you are done. So my strategy is only to all the recruiting professionals, especially even in HR. Pursue your passion. If you're if you want to be here and want to be successful, understand your domain, understand why you are here, and I think you can bang on. So that's the crux. Otherwise, you can read everywhere in Google what do you want to do. So that's from my side. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Charu. And taking on lead from there, I think talking about passion, talking about following what you want to do. Ashwin, I'll come to you. And, we often associate entrepreneurship with only startups, right? But I think even in larger organizations, it is equally relevant to have an entrepreneurial mindset. And I think that is something that we're driving in a lot of workforce now, as diverse as it can be, right? And taking lead from what Charu also said, do what you like to do. Why do you want to join? What is your passion? And, aligning to the purpose. Can you probably share your approach to inculcating an entrepreneurial mindset within your team, right? To drive innovation in social impact programs?
Yeah, sure. First of all, every time Smita speaks, I realize I've lost some of the words that I can use anymore.
You're changing a lot of perspectives and mindsets. So we're done with the purpose of the round table, I think.
And I think it's infectious because Kanika joined the bandwagon as well. So now I'm just fearful I'll be the next victim. So, but yeah, it's like this, anti-clockwise or something. But to drive innovation. So, it's the entrepreneurship. I think sometimes it's like doing everything or doing so those are kinds of things that we don't necessarily, we have like certain systems. So I can think about this like a game of chess where you have certain freedom to do certain things, but you can't move your pawn outside the chessboard sort of a thing. So that is something that we follow even within our organization, that these are certain things within the limits or within the rules or what the systems that has been set into place. What are your thoughts, and how do we give full freedom for the team to work on? But then how does it work in practice? Is generally you especially even no matter how egalitarian you want your organization to be, unfortunately there is a subconscious hierarchy in play. So if we want to generate ideas, the ideas generally starts, you ask from everyone else before the leadership team chimes in, so that there is no anchoring bias. The other kinds of things that we think of are instead of doing a brainstorming sort of a thing, we do where we a brain writing where there are no names of that person who gives the idea. and whoever adds on to the idea doesn't know who the idea came from. Again, ensuring that there's no bias when that kind of idea comes in. And I mean, the usual thing is always no idea is a bad idea, sort of things. Like, never, I have to sometimes actively check back and say that this is not something we want to do. But how do I rephrase the question to ensure that well, it's a good thing, but have we thought about this when you suggest something? So, those are some semantics, some simple ways of pushing the team into thinking. But ultimately, it comes down to like how confident, how much you can delegate, and how much you give confidence to them to explore. But be there to identify whether there is a skill gap. But if it's not a skill gap, then is there a confidence gap? If there is no confidence or a skill gap, then how do I remove as many obstacles as possible to ensure they could reach it to its end? So that is how I think about when I'm pushing my team, and it's no one size fits all. For different team members, different projects, we work based on that.
Super. Thank you. Thank you, Ashwin. And I like the last line that you said, no one size fits all. I think when we have a diverse workforce, it just can't.
That was the only line that was useful?
No. That is the only line that stayed with me. Super. Moving to you, Kanika. So at the Development Alternatives Group, we have a strong focus on green and inclusive entrepreneurship, right? Can you probably share how you have nurtured and developed talent within the organization, right? We've all been talking about how to manage our teams. How do you develop that talent to align them to organization with a mission and drive, when you have so many different layers of diversity in the workforce? How do you do that?
I think it starts with the structure itself, the way the team is structured. And I think Indrajit talked a little bit about it. It's not just sort of a vertical organization, but it's almost like a matrix approach. And we focus a lot on the interdependencies. So it's not just about what we constantly tell team members. And again, training is a word I don't like, because you can't really train people. And also, I think the direction the world is going into, it's moving more in terms of how people learn from different ways, in different ways. And so we always remind people that, look, you got to manage the interdependencies between yourselves. And don't worry too much about managing people, because once you manage the interdependencies, and I'll sort of unlock that a little bit more. So it's sort of this negotiation that people have, that, look, I have a skill or I have a strength in, say, social innovation processes that work towards enabling people to have a more entrepreneurial mindset. And there's someone who knows how to build an ecosystem more at the district level. Then how they can work together to come up with a solution is more important than anything else. Because and it happens to us again and again. Let me say that, I think you sort of talked about it, that we every day you have to remind yourself that you've fallen into the what is normal trap. And you have to say, okay, so we have these checkpoints, quarterly checkpoints, but we also have a lot of inscaping, where we do these weekly checkpoints, just in the mornings, where we ask each other how we're doing and what's on our mind. Just these simple ways to connect with each other, not these great team building efforts, but just simple ways to sort of connect with each other. I think the third thing for us that's very, very important is, again, I think a lot of people mentioned purpose. You mentioned a lot about purpose. So it's not about just, okay, what activity do you want to do or what output? Because at the end of the day, we also have the reality of constantly running around. And as a team, we always overload ourselves with doing more and more, because so much speaks out to you. And so we have to remind ourselves, okay, at the end of it, what's the hierarchy of impact and outcomes? And then move downwards to say, okay, then this is the output we have to have. This is the input that's required. So for example, if we want to look at youth entrepreneurship, then and we want to sort of make sure that youth entrepreneurship is enabled and more in the green sectors, then sort of move downwards towards, okay, or sideways downwards, whichever way you want to look at it. what are the outputs one would like to see in terms of the system change again, and not necessarily just in terms of an individual output. So these are some of the things. And the last thing, I think I want to emphasize a lot on the learning and the action aspect, because the way we're designed, we have an entire learning system which enables us to constantly look at everyone learning, and it's very difficult because, and we do that with partners as well. And communities. So we have 3 ways of learning. And a lot of people say, no, but I don't know this. This is not what I do. But as a team, you have to constantly sort of, make sure that you sort of move in that direction.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I'll come to you, Indrajit. And I have a question that, uh, drawing from your insights on thought leadership and empowerment, right? Can you elaborate on how organizations can, moving to the strategic part of it, design their structures, what we also spoke about, around human capital management, and not only accommodate, but also give a chance or amplify the voices and aspirations of a diverse workforce?
Thanks. I think I'll start with the same word I started, like transparency. I think that I really, really believe that that's one of the key. Talking about how, talking about our sector in general. One more word is gone now, training. By the way, so but I'll talk on passion just for a moment. So when I talk about passion, I believe that everybody has passion, but many people have passion about different things. So passion is somewhere for me is related to the purpose. Like it is primarily what I wanted to say when I talked about passion. So anyway, coming back to the so one word, rescued. So I'll say that one big thing in the sector is all about insecurity. Because we are mostly, there are small projects coming, going, and you are doing something sometime. So at the same, like how long people are working, how long, it all depends on the it's particularly, we can say that we are all working for our passion, we are working for the social development, everything, etc. But for many people, it is also about a job. If we forget that, I think we'll probably deny the fact. So there is a job, and there is a job insecurity as well, because I have somebody who is with me for a project which will finish by so and so date, and that person will be insecure from the day, like from the 3 months back, 6 months back. She's pretty insecure that, okay, what's going to happen after 6 months. So I think the first thing that we tried to kill is that insecurity by actually working on the structure to make most people working on multiple projects, so that your employment with the organization, so to say, is not dependent on the project. So one insecurity is killed very well, and it's a difficult thing to operationalize. Lot of mathematics, arithmetic here and there. I'm a measurement person, so I do that well. So that is one thing that I'll say was important. Second thing is, I'll also talk about the learning aspect of it, and we particularly invest on learning for everybody. And learning is also, for example, is kind of open for example, we are having a training on AI this weekend. So it is open, not for everybody to learn about AI. Doesn't matter whether that is like how you are going to utilize them, because I am not the one who will decide that who should take the training, who should not take the training. It should be people people will be taking the training and utilize it. So that's another thing that we keep doing a lot around training people. So I'm reminded of not to use training, but upskilling people, whatever you can call it. Capacity building. You any any. I went to a,
You had something on that?
yeah, I went to went to another kind of panel discussion which was on empowerment, and somebody told that, oh, I don't like the word empowerment. It is so much says that you are empowering somebody else, and now everybody else in the panel was completely out of word. Like what now I should say? There is no other word I know of empowerment. And okay, so just to conclude it, probably about the structure and how structure might work in terms of the social in the capacity building. It is also about putting each other into a completely different project. So for some time to learn, for some time to deliver. So you should not expect everybody to deliver at every point of time. So if I invest uh, like any of you, then probably for some time you will learn on it, and after that you'll start delivering on it. That increases the person's motivation, also increases his or her capability of getting the job even outside the organization, getting upskilled on a completely new subject, and probably also choose the passion, because that's what I've felt in the Gen Zs particularly. Most of the time, I'm sorry if I'm again age shaming or something, most of the time I found, and that's my passion, to actually talk to Gen Zs. I continuously have one-on-one with all the youngsters, because I believe that I need to learn from them, and there's a lot to learn from them. I felt many of the times they are kind of slightly confused about what they want to do. They have multiple options. Oh, I can do this, I can do that. So probably giving them multiple opportunities also help them decide what exactly, okay, climate करना है तेरे को versus livelihoods करना है कि हमको gender में ही काम करना है, diversity पे काम करेंगे. So that is something that helps. So when that's a structural solution also we work with.
Great. And taking lead from Gen Zs over here. And I think somebody when I had asked initially, they also said workforce generations and multi-generational workforce. I'll come to you, Sneha. You've participated in several international youth forums, right, and summits. How have these global experiences shaped your perspective on the role of young people? And more so because post-COVID, when things came back to normal work life, and there was suddenly an influx of the Generation Z, and a lot of organizations, a lot of in every sector, I would say, are grappling with that. The younger generation, which has suddenly got added and visible in the workforce, right? So, if you could possibly share how these global experiences have shaped your perspective on the role of young people in driving positive change within organizations, right?
Sure. I'll give you an example of a project that MASH Foundation did with, one of your partners, Daily Hunt. We did a story. We did a storytelling hackathon where we had 20 storytellers across the country participate and present a story of their choice. And there was a certain candidate, and we had Hindi and English as options. You can present your story in Hindi and English. There was a participant who said, I will talk about my story, but my presentation also will be in Hindi. So, that was something that was not a part of the program. And we changed it. We said, yeah, why not? So, drawing just for that, and Mr. Indrajit rightly mentioned that it's difficult to put the Gen Z or the younger generation, as we call, in certain shackles of hierarchy or ye nahi karna hai, wo nahi karna hai. You can't put them in any boxes. Because they are almost all of them are technology savvy today. Most of them have an opinion. They already have a brand identity for themselves thanks to social media. They come with a lot of knowledge because they're always on their phones. They're exploring things. So uh, the learning has always been that don't put them in shackles. Give them an opportunity to come out, speak for themselves. Give them the muscle of knowledge and opportunity. That was what the storytelling hackathon did, and give them a voice of their own. Don't put them in any sort of barricades. Whether you can't do this or this is your reporting. That kind of puts them into, and they have a lot of options today. So it's important to understand from where they're coming and give them the right platform to nurture them and to utilize their knowledge.
Thank you. Thank you, Sneha. Um, where is my team? Okay, I'm going to extend by another 10 minutes. And I'm not asking, I'm just informing. I'm taking that liberty, being the moderator. Yes, I feel very empowered, enabled. And I'm sure everybody has empathy also towards me right now. So I'll take one question with Sneha, and then I want all of you to share your concluding thoughts, okay? With Smita, sorry. Smita, transitioning from the corporate sector um, to the social impact sector, just like Charu has also done. I have also done, right? It's a significant shift, and I think we'll all agree to it. Could you share some key strategies or challenges that you encountered when bringing your domain expertise in strategy and scaling up organizations to the development sector?
No, thank you so much. Because I think a key role which has played in my transition is I think Shavita mentioned this in the morning. I'm an ILSS alumni. And again, the way the word of capacity building was introduced to me for the first time, and I didn't know this, was said that, the social sector needs, leaders from the private sector because we need your skills. And that was what I first encountered in that. And then, I was again blessed to, the first opportunity was to set up and build an organization in the social sector, never having done anything like that. And I had to build a team of social sector experts and uh, in a span of 6 months, I built a team of 50 people. Of all of them worked only in the social sector, and I was heading the organization, and I didn't know anything. So I think there were two messages that I wanted, because I asked the founders. I said, "Why me? I don't even know anything about the social sector. I've just enrolled in the ILSS course for 10 days. That's all I know." He said, "That's exactly why we need you, because we need that skill set, that ability to be, I had a 3-page concept note. I had to build it into an organization. I had to go and talk to the funders and donors, and it was, again, I had some very, very fantastic donors who said, "Yeah, you've got the message right. Come after a year. Here's the money." And I was like, "Oh wow, this sector is really nice. I mean, you don't have to go back and report and fund and all of that." So I think a couple of things that I wanted to sort of highlight here. One, that you need to bring in skill sets which will be relevant to the sector so that one can add value. One of the things that I said, look, yes, I know that it really adds to my own personal growth, but that's really not why I'm entering the sector. I really want to add value. So it may be very great for me, but that's okay. I can feel happy about it when I go back home. But that's not why I'm here. I'm here to develop and contribute my skills and my experience in developing something. So somewhere I would sort of have a slightly different perspective when you talk about cross leveraging. I think everybody has a value that they bring in, and my job is to orchestrate and make sure everybody is performing to their best abilities. That's what I meant, and which is exactly what happened, because when I came into the sector, I didn't know Rabi crops, and I mean, I come from a media specialization, and I'm here doing agriculture and nutrition and climate and sustainability. I just had to find the right people, and I could bring them to the fore and say that you tell me. The only thing that I did was ask the right questions. So weekly, I would sort of have these conversations, whether it was the leaders of those programs or whether were the youngsters, ask the right questions, inculcate the curiosity, etc. on that. Yes, I did my own learning as well. It was a hockey stick learning. I mean, I also sat down and understood what malnourishment means in India, which I hadn't done before. But that was just for me to have an intelligent conversation with my team, and they don't sort of. Beyond that, I really sort of don't think that anything really. So there's a lot of, again, the jargon of, oh, you must unlearn and you must learn. And that's okay. I mean, yes, of course. I mean, I don't think I had to unlearn anything. I think you just come with the humility, saying that, yes, I don't know about this sector, but I can bring in what I can bring in and let me contribute. And, because I was a senior most person, I knew how to do things. I've done that 15 times. So I could share my experiences and see what works. Really, it's nothing, really no rocket science, very honestly, on the transition.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Smita. Okay. I want concluding thoughts, please, from all of you. Starting with you, Dr. Reddy. One actionable strategy that organizations can start implementing right away from the word go, that comes to your mind, to create an organizational culture that we discussed today, that everybody spoke of, that overcomes probably some of the challenges that we are all facing?
Everyone should have their own way of doing things. So when you want to consolidate the efforts of everybody working in the organization to one direction kind of thing. So what is your way of doing things? So that should be cutting across the organization from top to the bottom, from horizontally also. So everybody in one voice, and there is a scope for the what's it called, doing things differently at the same time towards one direction. So that is what I suggest. Thank you.
I think one of the key takeaway, or I would like to share here with the audience is, especially when you're working with a social impact sector, and as we discussed, I think we have already talked about a lot about leadership, different challenges altogether. One of the important aspect is to understand, and I would again talk about a little bit. I mean, not just talk about just one thing, that why, because especially when you're working with a social impact sector, if you're not able to resonate with why you are here overall as an individual in the organization, you'll not be able to make that impact. And especially empowering people, though we have not discussed that's one of the thing, but it was there in my mind, when you empower people to take initiative, and that's one of the core value of our organization, to have leadership with initiatives, that so that you empower people to take ownership, accountability, what do they want to do, find a problem, execute end to end, and bring value to the table. So that's one my I mean, it's okay to have you might not, I mean, as we discussed, right? I mean, you don't have to be at that domain knowledge, you don't have to be always be that related to that sector, but what is more important, that you have the right skill set. And that's, I've been sitting here with CW, that been here because they wanted to have somebody from that core expertise. You will find your way out. So I think that's one of the empowerment is and finding your why is very, very important. Thank you.
Just thinking what more to add. We've said so much. I mean, haven't we? I feel like we've talked about all the strategies. We've all talked about flexibility. We've talked about transparency. We've talked about operationalizing those pieces, the different ways the different members of the panel do that. And I think it's the strategies, and that one strategy, there is no one strategy, right? But I think the fact that we're having this conversation is a really good start. I think that we take these conversations back into our organizations, and maybe there's been a little bit of, perception change, behavior change, even in this conversation. And I think those are the kinds of strategies, that the fact that we're having these conversations in both the social sector and actually private sector is also having these conversations, and we bring different perspectives. So that's.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say, that probably let people fail more and more, and we of course failing fast, to be bold to fail, to have the candor in the organization, so that you can always say that yes, I failed. And not failing enough is not a good idea. In my organization, at least, I say that if I'm not failing enough, then we are probably not trying enough new things. So please let people fail, and let people say very clearly that they failed. And that is, in my view, this actually empowers me as well to try new things, etc. So failing, it's important to fail.
That reminds me, Indrajit, one of my previous assignments that I was doing, one of the values that the organization had for was first time right. And the CEO was like, how can anybody be first time right? You need to let creativity and innovation flow. So I don't want a first time right value in my organization. Ashwin.
It's like everyone's talking about the one, so it's like suddenly become philosophical or something. One with the God, one with the nature, one with not for change, or for impact, one with for impact, something. So, but one actionable thing, and I think this is something was pointed out, was on feedback culture. Um, but it's not just about saying feedback. What does it mean? It means like how do you implement, how do you give feedback? Now, giving feedback requires you to be staying on your side of the court, sort of a thing. Don't assume things. What happened? What are your thoughts about it? And what are your suggestion? But not telling that this is maybe you're going through this, that is why. So that is how you give feedback is a key component. And also how you take feedback, also at least for the leadership, for us specifically, is we have like I have check-ins with my direct reports every week, 15-30 minutes, where one of the questions is what is the feedback that you have for me? And sometimes I have received it. And that has been the biggest game changer for me, is having those one-on-one meetings with each of my direct reports. And I try to ask all of them to also have the check-ins with their direct reports. So, and inculcate these questions about like what feedback that you get, because ultimately you don't want it to fester for 6 months and then after a check-in you get it. So getting feedback and giving feedback are the key components. uh, there's another word that I have to remember now.
I mean, you just said, right? It's not just about giving, it's about giving the constructive feedback so that one
Yeah.
can relate to it.
Yeah, wow. I think we've already said so much, but I think one of the things I do want to talk about is we briefly mentioned collaboration, but there's a lot more to be discussed on that. And I hope you take the conversation forward. Invest into relationships with partners. The dependency on yourself, on your own team members, consistently puts too much pressure, and you don't even have the ability to actually tackle all the solutions yourself. So, in fact, with some of our partners, the relationship is such that we actually have exchanged salary structures and have said, okay, you know what, we're looking at change. What are your challenges? What kind of salary increase are you looking at? And a lot of times we also, when we see people who want to join from other partners and all, we actually have conversations with the permission of the candidate, of course. Like, there's someone who joined my team recently from Pradhan, and we actually we picked up the phone and talked to each other, and she said, yeah, I think her growth lies in this role as opposed to just in that one organization. And I hope to do that consistently, because like I said, we have to consistently remind ourselves, because otherwise you can get lost in the, we have to do this really fast and we have to do this well.
Fantastic. One more mindset, one last mindset shift that I really want people to think about is this organization building, capacity building that people are sort of really talking about. You know, when you're building an organization, remember, we are still in the social sector. I'm not building an organization to continue in perpetuity. So, a lot of people say, oh, we want to build a brand and let's hire a comms person and let's do a fancy website and let's do a series of 10 events because I want to build a company. Yes, you need to build an organization to be able to do anything. But at the end of it, there's a purpose behind that. And just want to leave this thought behind that, even when you meditate in personal life and you want to do it better, because, initially when you start meditating, you're not as good, and then you try trips and tricks and you get better at meditation. But you get better at meditation not to get better at meditation. You want to get better at life. So you practice and become better at meditation. I think that's the message that I want to sort of leave behind, because let's not just get overstretched with building an organization and processes and systems and this and that and leave the purpose behind. And a large part of our efforts and energies, oh, systems and this, and we have participatory approaches. And yeah, sure. But your purpose is why you exist. Don't leave that behind. And if all this effort is leading to helping you better create impact and solve for the problems and the complexity that you're there, great. Otherwise, say that no, not worth my time. This is not my priority. I just wanted to leave that one thought here.
The last one, I think there's so many nice thoughts shared, but I think from the experience of being in a tech and a media ecosystem, I think it's just from what I've seen is that keep learning, don't stop your employees from learning, keep them knowledge hungry, not for the job, but just for their well-being, because the industry is changing so rapidly. You might need 20 people today for one job, and tomorrow you might just need 5 of them. So keep that knowledge channel open every time, and then I think we'll just keep evolving in our jobs.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for this insightful roundtable. I think, yeah, we all can clap for our own selves. I don't think we have time for Q&A, but if it's okay with the speakers, I mean, if anybody has questions, please feel free to connect with them after the roundtable and, on one-on-one, and they can take on the questions. Over to you, Shivani.
That was indeed a very powerful discussion. I would request my team to give the speakers a small token of appreciation. Vansha, Sodha. I would request everyone to be seated for just another 2 minutes. We are nearing the end of the day, but before we conclude, I would like to invite Ms. Anchal Kakkar to deliver the vote of thanks. Ms. Anchal Kakkar is a co-founder at Arthan and is responsible for managing the organizational development and thought leadership vertical at Arthan, including the Women at Work initiative. Previously, she has worked with DASRA, PwC, and Boston Consulting Group, a Shell Foundation and Impact Business Leaders Fellow, and she holds an MBA from Syed Business School, University of Oxford. Anshul. Yes, we can have a round of applause.
Thank you. I'm going to keep this as short as possible. I know everyone's waiting for coffee outside, but just genuinely a very, very big vote of thanks to all of you. I think when we started the conference in the morning, this hall was full, and at the end of the day also it is full. So makes us feel really, really glad, and we are hopeful that whatever has been shared and learned today has been of value, and we continue to do that. I'm just going to do a quick recap of the day for people who joined in later or missed out on what we spoke about earlier today. So we started with an introduction by my co-founder Rahul. I think, as always, it was immensely inspiring, and he spoke about Arthan's journey and what to really do when you're joining the impact sector. We had two keynotes. We had Deepak Dogra, who is our board member and forever been supporting Arthan, talk about the essential ingredients for working in the social impact space, right from cultivating supportive ecosystems to the importance of mentorship to working on people-centric approaches. We had another keynote by Dipali Khanna from the Rockefeller Foundation, who has been instrumental in helping us develop our Women at Work initiative, right, supporting us from day one with our study there. And she spoke about how it's important to recognize women not simply as beneficiaries, but as pioneers in sustainable change. We then had a panel on strengthening human capital, charting a succession roadmap for future of social impact organizations. A lot of various diverse themes were explored. Some of the key things that stood out were investing in organizational growth, fostering opportunities for the next generation, as well as looking at compensating for excellence. Post that, we had this particular roundtable on investing, on dynamic culture dialogues, navigating empathy, entrepreneurship, and empowerment in today's organizational landscape. I think we heard a lot of diverse views, and even as I was saying the words empathy and empowerment, I was being reminded of all the conversations around it. So I think that was very interesting. Some of the very interesting things that came up, and not wanting to repeat too much, were the importance of transparency, how that can lead to vulnerability, having an inherent respect for the workforce, aligning your hiring processes with passion, making sure that empowerment is rooted in empathy. I strongly believe in both terms, so I'm going to continue to use these two. Very important how you make sure that inclusivity is not an outcome, but it's a perpetual approach that you're following, and making sure that you are the CEO of your running your organization, like how you are the CEO, making sure everyone is running it in that manner, and essentially underlining the importance of entrepreneurship. I think there were a lot more things, and we will be summarizing those points when we'll be sharing this with you. I will not keep you guys very long over here, but just closing in on, since the conference is around leadership and what to look at, I think just sharing a few learnings that Arthan has had, and I think I'm speaking on behalf of my co-founders and founder as well, is essentially three things that we at Arthan hold very, very important, give a lot of importance to. So one is agility. I think what's been very, very crucial is being agile and making sure that you're ready to be dynamic in your approach in terms of the challenges that you're looking to solve. Second would be keeping each other accountable. So it's immensely important to make sure that you have in sight what those goals and targets you're working towards, because honestly, in this sector, given the number of problems, the complex nature, I think it's very easy to get carried away into wanting to solve everything, which is what essentially ends up obstructing what you're trying to achieve. And lastly, making sure, like I said, empathy is one of my favorite words. So being empathetic, listening to everyone. There is so much that we learn from every day. I personally learn so much from the younger generation, and I think there's a lot that they have to learn from us as well. So making sure that empathy and listening process continues. So thank you so much, and I think we're serving coffee and tea now. Thank you.